Okay, hello everyone. Hey Cora, how's the streaming been going with Animal Crossing? I saw you sort of hop back and forth between YouTube and Twitch a little bit. So in this stream, we're gonna be doing a few things here. We've got a few projects in flight right now, and so I want to sort of start with a kind of status update on both of those, and let you all know what we're going to be working on today and going forward and stuff. So there's two that we're working on right now. You can check them out in the panels on the Twitch channel too. But we have the FindMyRep voice app, which is the last one we were working on. Which the goal for that is to make it easier, more accessible, and streamlined to contact your government and elected representatives and officials, all that stuff, right? So from your mayor and city officials to, your senator and rep in the House of Representatives that are there and supposed to be representing you, right? So and getting their phone numbers, their emails, all that, so you can contact them, and hopefully make a difference, learn more about them and stuff like that. So that currently exists on Alexa and Google publicly, so you can go ahead and enable that Alexa skill, that Google action, start asking right away. We built it all from scratch in .NET. It's hosted on Azure, and it's really just like a super simple implementation. The other project we have is the Warzone controller, which is eventually going to lead into a much bigger project. But the goal there is to be able to use virtual assistants, just like Alexa and Google Assistant, again, chatbots, etc., to be able to manipulate and control your character, or in this case just my character on stream, in Call of Duty's Warzone. Now, we started working on that a few weeks ago. We put it on hold to work on the FindMyRep stuff while I was also waiting for stuff to get shipped in, so that we can use the Arduinos to actually mock USB controllers. So before that we were using key injection, and it basically was ignored by the sort of main video games. We tried Call of Duty and we tried Dark Souls, and basically learned that you need an actual USB device because they don't listen to the Windows level commands, they listen to the USB level commands. So what we did is got an Arduino Leonardo, so I didn't have one yet, and this controller lets us actually mock being a USB keyboard. So we're going to be able to do this stuff, hopefully, anyway, we'll see if this actually works all the way through, where all our existing setup of taking the commands from the virtual assistant, routing it through SignalR in real time to the UWP app we have running locally on our desktop, and then send serial commands from that to the Arduino, and then the Arduino sends keyboard commands back up, and then we're moving and grooving. So that's the goal there. But today we're going to focus mostly on the FindMyRep app. I talked to a few people offline in my Twitter DMs and on Twitter, as well as just friends and family, about the sort of use case here and what we have and how we could make it even better. So there's a few things that I want to do with the app. So right now you can say things like just give it your zip code, and it'll give you your whole massive list of reps from your city officials to your senators. You can also say like you want the governor of in a zip code, or the mayor of in a zip code. If it has that information, it'll provide it. What I want to do is make it a little more conversational, a little smarter, and easier for us to maintain and build, rather than having to sort of self-host and push code up all the time when there's updates, which just has a risk of breaking things. So what I want to do today is I'm going to actually migrate it from the custom-built app for the Google Assistant action, the Alexa skill, and the Bixby capsule, which I guess we did start but didn't finish deploying on Wednesday. And we're going to move all those to a Voicify app and then just write a simple integration. It'll be much easier for us to maintain. We'll get all the CMS capabilities from Voicify. We'll get better analytics in terms of how people are using it. And we'll make it a lot easier to build more contextual conversations, because one of the things I want to be able to do is say, like, okay, if I ask for the governor of 02110, I don't just want to be prompted with like, okay, ask me something else. I instead want to make it a little smarter and be able to say like, okay, here's your governor, it's Charlie Baker, blah, blah, blah. You can contact them by phone at this. Now do you also want to learn about your mayor? And then enable the user to just say yes or no, and then basically take them in there. And there's a lot of work that actually goes into designing contextual conversations like that from scratch. And I just want to use Voicify for it. It'll be a lot easier to do it that way with just designing conversations and content and get some use out of the platform here. We'll still be doing development in .NET to do the integration work, which will be cool, but we don't have to worry about the sort of pedantic side of things of like the stupid switch statements of like, if it's this intent, then do this. If it's this, then do this. Like, it's nonsense. It shouldn't be in code, right? It should be easier to manage, and that's what we'll use Voicify for. On top of that, I heard from other people that we want to deploy it to more places. I talked to folks that brought it up the desire to create like a Slack bot, a Discord bot, and a Microsoft Teams bot as well. For Slack and Teams, it would be useful to sort of enable in your workplace to allow your coworkers or employees to be able to ask and learn about the representatives and make a difference as well. And for Discord, similar thing, but just more useful in like a community, especially in the gaming industry, which we're tinkering with in some other environments. So that's going to be the goal for today. Is we're going to do the migration. That shouldn't take very long at all. I work on Voicify all day, every day. It's what I do for my day job. I've been doing it for the last 4 years, creating this platform. So we should be able to fly right through that migration. It'll also be cool to show you all sort of what I've been working on for the last few years and what me and my team have put together in terms of tools to make it easy to build these things out. So if you have other ideas of things you want this FindMyRep app to do, or other places you want to be able to use it, or others might want to use it, throw it in chat. Let me know. And once it's in Voicify, it's going to be super easy to set up. I've also considered doing like a mobile app where you can just basically type in, get the information listed out to you, which we would probably just do in Xamarin Forms, but maybe I try to get Maui to build or something like that too. That could be fun. Or do it in Kotlin. I've thought about just sort of other chatbot environments. We talked about Twitter and some grief we have there, but that still might be useful. Facebook Messenger and stuff like that too. So those are some other options and some things I'm thinking about. I also talked to some other folks about more advanced functionality, like learning what platforms those government officials sort of are involved in and decisions they make and where they stand on certain issues. So if we can find a way to learn more about that via an API, then we could also integrate at that level too, which I think would be cool. So let's take a look at what we have so far, and then let's start talking about migrating it to a Voicify integration. So like I said, this is already deployed on Alexa and Google. We have our actual skill. I posted those on Twitter and in chat last stream, but I can post them again. And we have our Google action. So when you have a skill published in the Alexa Developer Console, when you go to the skill, this is our FindMyRep skill, we get taken to the analytics right away, which gives us some like basic information here around like how the skill is doing, right? Like we can see that we've had 4 people use it in the last 7 days. We only published it on Wednesday, so or right before Wednesday. We've had 3 people use it, 2 people on average using it every day. We have 2 new people from the last time we checked in the last 7 days. 12 utterances, which means people have spoken a few times at it. And then we can even see the ratio here. 25 people saying stop to end the session, 50% of people asking for all, and then sort of a split between governor and mayor. So we haven't had any misses. Our average latency time of our endpoint is 699 milliseconds. This is probably this high. Like realistically, it shouldn't be this high. This is probably this high because we're using a free version of the Azure App Service to host it on, which means that if no one's using it, you're going to get a cold start. So the first request is going to take longer, and then subsequent ones should be like under 50 milliseconds. So that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing those. And then, that's all they really give us here. We can get into like customer details of unique customers over a histogram, sessions, individual utterances, the different intent breakdowns, and, seeing how they're performing against each other, which is kind of useful. We can also see the interaction path, which I've never actually got this to like work very well. But yeah, okay, it requires like a full week, which we haven't really had. Only show 1 week of data. Okay, so if we go from, why wouldn't you set me up that way then? Stop. Okay, let's try to go to like June 1st. All right, Okay, it still doesn't want to show us anything. Like I said, I've never got this to work the way I expect it to. Performance summary, it's all the stuff that we saw in like the overview. And then skill activation, seeing how many people actually enable it and stuff like that. So, we've got people actually using it, which is cool. And I think more people will use it, the easier it is to use. And we can sort of even just looking at the summary of like the intent breakdown. Like a lot of people get the all one, and that's fine. It just reads out a bunch of information. But 25 people going to stop, saying explicitly stop, also sort of indicates that they don't need to listen to this whole thing, which means that this might not even be as useful as we intended by just dumping all that information out to the user. And then, seeing the breakdown here where we don't even have anyone asking for senators. So, the easier we make that process to be digestible and conversational, the easier it's going to be, which is sort of, the intention here when we move it to Voicify to make that super easy to set up. Okay, let's go see how Google's doing too. Google's an interesting one. I haven't even looked at any of these analytics yet, so let's see if we have anyone using it. Okay, so why is this showing me a single day? Okay, June 4th, 10 people used it. Can I just see like, this is like the most useless thing ever. Okay, so this is from March 15th to June 6th. It's like the oddest breakdown I've ever seen. I don't understand this. Okay. Aside from the fact that their graphs aren't easy to understand, we've had 20 people using it overall, which is good. That's more than Alexa, so more people are using it on Google. The reason for that is likely the activation easiness on Google versus Amazon. I mean, neither of them are really easy and could definitely be better from my point of view, but basically, we talked about this in the last stream, but because our Google Action has a unique name, no one else can create a FindMyRep. It means that you don't have to like activate it ahead of time. If you just say talk to FindMyRep, you're gonna land in this action. Versus on Alexa, if you say open FindMyRep, you're probably gonna get like, I don't know that until you enable it. And then you have to go explicitly enable that skill and then start using it. So there's a pretty big barrier to entry there, to just getting in there and using it on Alexa versus Google. So people are using it more on Google, which is good. This is all they're really giving us on usage data. Discovery, nothing. We don't have enough. Average rating of 5. Thanks, person who gave it a 5-star rating, because I don't even think I did yet. And then you can export it to BigQuery and then use your own custom analytics. But okay, looking at health. We've had 7 invalid responses. That's probably because of that same thing, that cold start on the free Azure App Service. If this starts getting traction, I'll throw money at it to get it hosted on at least a D tier or S tier Azure App Service. That way we can have always on and warm starts. But either way, I mean, like we're having some surprisingly good usage for not really promoting it too much outside of like a couple tweets and this stream. But I still think that it's not super conversational. It's not keeping people engaged and getting them the right information very easily, and I think we can do a better job at that. So let's talk about how we can actually migrate this thing to Voicify. So this is actually, I think, my first time showing Voicify on stream, but essentially what we have here is an organization where we create a voice app, and a voice app or a conversational app can be deployed to any platform. Like Voicify will support anything that is conversational, to the point where like if you just throw it text, we'll figure it out, which is super cool. But we can also do explicit deployments to Alexa and Google, and can even deploy to existing apps without overriding anything. So like our goal with this is to make sure that we maximize the code and logic that we have, right? So like in the code over here, we have our Google Civic Info Provider. I don't want to have to change this at all in this migration. I don't want to have to change my models, and I also want to make sure that my existing stuff stays up, right? Like we already have this published. We can't just go and like delete this controller and break it. But like all the sort of similarities here conceptually are what I want to avoid keeping. So like having to do this, like if this intent is zip code, then do this logic, versus like if it's the help, do this, or if it's welcome, like it's the same structure over here. If it's welcome, do this. If it's a zip code, do this. Otherwise, do this. And then we do basically the same thing on Bixby. Like we should be able to get rid of all of that after we finish this deployment, because Voicify will handle the conversation when we design it in there. And we can also do better things like change the display text more easily, which, you know, as you might have seen in the last stream, not super easy to do in custom code, surprisingly, with having to pull it out and then do some weird stuff. We can handle adding media very easily without having to like host it somewhere else. And we can deploy it to more places more easily. So to migrate it, right, we want to keep all our custom intents. I don't want to have to change my language model that I already set up on Alexa and Dialogflow and all that. What I do want to do is make it easier to build on top of that and manage it, and then use all the existing built-in functionality and intents and everything else and language model stuff from Voicify. So let's go and actually create the app in Voicify and register it. So I'm going to call this FindMyRep. We already have our invocation name, so we'll just put it in here for the sort of default stuff. And then I'm just going to actually go grab my details from the Alexa developer console and use them in Voicify as well, just to make sure that we're consistent here. Oops, we'll get to that later. Okay, and we'll start with actually we'll start with sample content. So what this is doing is this is going to spin us up an app in Voicify. It's not going to be deployed anywhere, but we have this sample content folder. In here we have content and conversational aspects for all of the sort of default things we need. You'll see things in here that are just like what we wrote the code for. So for example, we have a welcome message here. And if I look at the welcome message, just like any conversation item in Voicify, I can manage it on the left side and preview it on the right side, which means that, you know, I give it a title or whatever, and then I have my actual output response here, and I'm good to go. So for example, in this case, like when we're migrating, because we already have like our explicit welcome message here, which is in our response service, or like we have our fallback help, we have this building stuff, and then down here we have our welcome. Like I can just copy this and paste it in here into Voicify. So now that's my welcome message. I don't have to write any code for it. Welcome message is just a built-in functionality of every conversational app. When you open it up, you get the welcome message. Now, some other things we can do here that's really cool is outside of the plain text, we can also use what's called SSML, or speech synthesis markup language, which enables us to do things like change the way that the output is actually spoken. If you're a dev, this is kind of like HTML, but instead of choosing how things are structured and visualized, it's choosing how they're synthesized from a virtual voice or a synthetic voice. So you can do a lot of cool things here. We can add like basic pauses. We could swap the whole thing out for custom audio. So if I wanted to use a voiceover instead of the Alexa voice, we could do that. We can choose how specific phrases or things are said. So for example, when we get to like the phone numbers and all that, like we can say explicitly it's a phone number, even if it's not in like the right format. We can add bleeps, we can have things spelled out, stated as dates, times, units, all that. And you can also change effects. So if you wanted to change the speed of how a certain thing was spoken, change the pitch, emphasis, or volume of like part of it, you can do that. And the cool thing about how this works on the Voicify side is that we can also see it visually without having to look at the markup. So for example, if I just wanted to add emphasis to our app name, FindMyRep, I can highlight it and just say I want to add strong emphasis. And now even just still reading this out, I now know that there's emphasis added to it, to the FindMyRep. I can hover over it and see that it's strong emphasis for the details. And we even have this cool little indicator here to show you if it's something that supports sort of being on a scale. You'll see it come through there. So I can even nest these effects too. So if I wanted to add like a higher pitch to rep, I could just highlight that and set high pitch, and you can see the effects nested without breaking the readability. Now underneath, you can still view what the SSML looks like, which is cool. So this is what it actually is going to be sending back down to the virtual assistant platform, to Alexa and Google. We have like the emphasis level strong. We have prosody pitch plus 25%. You can sort of see how it's set up there. So you can even add other effects. So for example, Amazon has all sorts of custom effects that they support that aren't part of the normal SSML spec, while this sort of WYSIWYG editor or visual editor only supports the sort of abstracted layers for now. It does mean that you can go in and just type in the custom stuff. We'll never get in the way there. Now, while I'm setting this up, one of the problems that we had when trying to get this to work on Alexa and Google was testing it out. Oh, yeah, thanks, Jack. It's super nice to use when you're editing. My favorite part of the SSML, before I get too sidetracked, is the audio stuff. So when you use custom audio, there's like really strict rules around the like bit rate and sample rate and stuff like that you have to support to get it to work with virtual assistants, and they're also somewhat different on each of the platforms in terms of their rules. So it's like a 48 kilobit per second bit rate, and then there's like either 16K to 24K sample rate, hertz sample rate, and then you also have like a restricted time. So like normally, like no audio processor is like recording at those because they're basically like super low quality defaults. But you can just drag and drop or upload an audio file, and like Voicify just kind of handles it for you. Like we'll handle the transcoding to get the highest quality out of it for each of the platforms. So even if you upload one that's too long, like if it's over that 240 second, that 4-minute mark, we'll even just truncate it for you just to get it to work, which I think is cool. And it's also like represented visually. But anyway, so while we're sort of like affecting our outputs responses, one of the issues, or not really an issue, but sort of a challenge or time spent that we didn't need to when we were doing it custom to, was actually hearing how things sounded before we actually published the thing. Like in order to hear our welcome message on Alexa or Google, we needed to go deploy to Alexa and deploy to Google, and then actually go to the simulator or go to a real device and then hit that welcome message. But now on the right side here in our conversation flow previewer, we can preview our output both on screen-based devices and audio devices right away. So for example, if I wanted to hear how Google would make it sound, I can actually load the audio for this, and we can even hear those changes to the SSML. So we'll hear the difference in how Google handles the emphasis and pitch change. And hopefully this comes through. Let me turn up the desktop audio just so you all can hear it too on stream.
Welcome to FindMyRep! Exclamation mark. You can find contact information and details about your representatives from federal to local. Just say your zip code.
Right, so even with, you heard the FindMyRep, and then, even just hearing the way that we set this up, because the exclamation point was outside of this, it didn't sound, it like actually said exclamation point, which isn't what we wanted. So even just like hearing those previews is super useful. What I'm going to do is remove, let me just actually like reset this to the raw stuff. That way we don't have to like deal with affecting anything. But now hearing it without any effects, we can listen to it as well.
Welcome to FindMyRep. You can find contact information and details about your representatives from federal to local. Just say your zip code.
Cool. So some other stuff we can do, which is going to be important for the screen-based devices, is add certain media. So right now, like if we go to the screen previews, you can see if we hit it on like an Echo Show, which is like the Alexa medium screen, we'll just have like the text displayed there, but we can even go and like add a foreground image. So I can just go into the media manager. Let's see, we had our FindMyRep icon, right? So I can upload and attach that and set it as the foreground image. And now in this area too, you can also do things like set background images. You can make the display text be different. So if we didn't want it to be like the same as the output speech, barring the SSML stuff that's in there, we can also make it custom, and same with display title. But you can even go as far as like changing the template or structure or response for like a very specific type of device. So for example, if I wanted on like the Alexa small screen round, just like the Echo Spot, the little circular screen, if I wanted to use a different layout and different media, or even different output speech, like just change it for whatever I need to for that device, all I have to do is select it and then select the template. And then you're off and running. Another thing I can do for devices that support it is even use Alexa presentation language, which is their like proprietary custom layout stuff. You can do things like add events and all that, just by pasting the markup here as well. So if you use Alexa's Designer for APL, which I can show you real quick actually in the FindMyRep section, in the build tab, there's ways to basically build for displays, right? So if I go to displays, we now have these like display templates for APL. And if I create one, like for example, this I don't know, like this today's photo of cheese. Like behind the scenes, there's a whole bunch of code. It's basically like a JSON structure for seeing like data bindings and the actual presentation language itself, like the layout. But basically, you can just like export this or download it, and then if you open up this JSON file and take this, like you can just paste this in Voicify right here, and now we'll also render that too, which is cool. But anyway, I'm not going to save that customization. What I do want to keep is that foreground image, because at the abstracted level, that's going to work on both Google, very big brain. It's going to work on both Google and Alexa the same way. So I'll save this, and now you'll see if we switch back over to screens here, we have our foreground image attached there as well. So yeah, so what we have here now is our welcome message. I'm going to change this from sample to default since it's no longer a sample. We can save and close that. Now, we'll get into adjusting all these other things for like exit help and fallback. But what we need to set up is actually migrating our existing custom intents and stuff like that over, right? Like we can use the built-in Voicify stuff, but we need to also be able to handle all of these different intents that we set up: government zip code, senator zip code, mayor, and all. So we have something for that in Voicify that you can use. It's just called the custom request type. So for example, I can just create one of these for each of the different intents I want to have, and then even provide a different response and a different integration and all that stuff too. So let me go and create one for each one of these. I'm going to create like the governor zip code one. And now in the request names, this is basically where we need to define the intent names or the request types, because this could be used for things like background events. If a user installed your app, that could get sent through to one of these, and we can even restrict on certain platforms too. But other than that, it's the same thing, right? We provide a response. So for now, I'm going to put a placeholder in here. Say you asked for a governor. And I'll get into how we can actually basically not use this and actually get the response back from the existing code that we had. So if I save and activate this, once it's done saving, we can see it here in this list as well. And then it's all sort of accessible from when we deploy it. Now, we can also structure this stuff in different folders. So for example, this sample content, I'm going to rename to general responses. And we'll keep like the welcome and fallback and stuff there. Now I'm going to create a new folder here for zip code requests. And we're going to put in each of those other intents there. So now I can go over here to the gov zip code intent and just move it over here. All right, so now we have this one, and our general responses has, you know, the general responses. And I'm going to delete this one here. Cool. So as we start to build out this stuff, we need to actually get it deployed to the different places. So what I want to do now, before we go and finish building out all these other intents and then designing the conversation, is I want to get this linked up to our Alexa skill in Google Action. So what I can do is go to settings here and deployment. And in the deployment section in a Voicify app, I can see all the sort of different places where I can actually register this app to be used, right? So we have Alexa, we have Google, which will go through Dialogflow just like we did before. We have Microsoft, so we can run this from an Azure Bot Service without having to host the actual service itself. And we can also download the Bixby capsule there too. And then there's also the direct fulfillment endpoints that we can use, including the custom assistant one, which means like if we want to handle something completely on our own as developers, we can send requests to that endpoint, including just like the raw text, and it'll actually route through to the right places too. So to get it linked to the existing Alexa skill, I just have to log in with the same Amazon account and give access to it. So if I say allow here, Voicify is now able to grab my information for my Alexa skills. So I can either create a new skill for it, or I can connect it to one of my existing ones. So we have the two different FindMyReps. One is the published one, and that's the dev one. You'll notice here that I can't actually select this one because you can't actually change a published version. So I can select this one and hit link. Now that's going to run through a deployment process, which is just going to hit Amazon's APIs to like register stuff. But what we'll see if we go over to the development version, which will then basically flip, will that keep updates to your interaction model in sync? It does, yeah. So even though like all the custom stuff that we've already set up here, right? Like our government zip code intent, senator zip code intent, and all that stuff will stay exactly the same. Voicify is not going to touch your existing stuff, but what it is going to do is add a bunch of other useful information to your Alexa skill, and then similarly to your Dialogflow agent once we deploy that. And then you don't actually have to touch this stuff ever again, right? Like as we start to build out content in conversation design and flow and Voicify, we're sort of good to go here. So let's do this. While that's sort of running through its deployment, let's also go link it to Google. So I'm going to sign in with a Google account, choose the one that I used before, and hit allow. And now similarly, we'll start to see those Dialogflow agents that we have access to here as well. So we have the FindMyRep one, and I can link that. So that's going to do the same thing to both those platforms. It's going to take all of the language model stuff that I've had to change in Voicify, along with all the base Voicify stuff that we need. It's going to send those up and sync the two, and keep our existing stuff just fine. And then it's going to do that going forward, because it's not just a single deployment. That's why we call it a link. So we've linked our Voicify app to these two different locations, and now we can actually use them as we sort of would expect to. Cool. So let's start to build out our other intents, and then we'll also set up some webhook calls that we can make to actually route the business logic. So far, we've made a welcome message, and we've registered a intent here for the government zip code intent. What I'm going to do is just copy this a couple times, because we need to have, let's see here, we need 1, 2, 3, 4 custom ones, and then the rest will be Voicify ones. So I'm going to just now copy these two to each other, and then we'll have 4. So we'll have governor, senator, mayor, and all covered. And now I can just go into these and make changes. So we have government zip code intent. Let's make sure we grab the same name here just for consistency. We'll have senator, same request name. You asked for a senator. Save. I'm going to do the next one, which is mayor. You asked for a mayor. Mayor. And then the last one I think is all, right? So we got to get the all zip code intent, which I don't know how useful this is going to be going forward when we make this a little bit easier. You asked for all the government, and we can save that. Awesome. So last thing to touch up here before we get into webhook stuff, let's make sure we get our help and fallback also updated. And one thing we didn't even have in our custom one is an exit message. So when you say stop, we need to be able to remind them that they come back. And I can't remember if we even set that up. But either way, we have our response service here where we had those static responses. And luckily, most of these will go away. But we need to get that fallback message. So I'm going to take this one. And if we go to the sample fallback, I'm going to rename this to default fallback. Default. Here's the response. Don't need to governor of 110. And we want this to be a general fallback, and we'll save that. Okay, we got default. Let's go get the help message. And with the FindMyRep skill, you can ask for your locals, blah, blah, blah. Okay, again, this isn't a sample anymore. This is our default. And we can save this one. Now let's go add an exit message. So the exit message thing is a little interesting. Basically, like, you're only going to hit this in certain circumstances. And the reason is that a few years ago, Amazon implemented the brief mode. And so when you say exit on a skill explicitly, even though this is called an exit message, if you're using the default settings as an Alexa user, you'll never actually hear this exit message. Even if like it's sent up and your response is sent down from Voicify, like the user's not going to necessarily hear it. But for certain things like stop and cancel, they will. So there's still sort of a need for this. The same thing also exists on Google. It's basically the same thing. If you just say cancel or exit, I think it stops entirely and doesn't send anything back. But if you say stop, it'll go through this. But it's basically, this is our chance to like basically kind of remind the user they should come back. Like let them know that we're changing things, that there might be new stuff we're going to add. If basically keep them interested, keep them sort of wanting to come back. So we'll say see you later. Come back soon to learn more about your elected officials. And that's fine. So the cool thing with all these other messages that we just set up is we get the same benefit that we just saw with the welcome message. So we have the SSML editor, we have the media editor, we have the ability to preview like we just did here. So even on like our fallback message, we can do things like add media or custom responses, but we can also still hear how it's going to sound from the different assistants. So like if we want to hear Cortana speak it.
You said something I don't understand yet.
Blah, blah, blah. Make sure it all sounds right. Attach media. And then the last thing you can do on all these conversation items is also basically choose what happens next, right? So in our custom code, everything is very static. It's like, here's your information. And then we just like, we hit you with this, this thing at the end. You can ask for another zip code's reps, which doesn't really help too much. It also doesn't provide any context or anything either. Like it's just here's a thing you can do. But similarly, if you want to follow this route, you can do that in Voicify too. So like, let's go to our welcome message, for example. Down at the bottom, after you've built out your response and your media, you can choose a conversation follow-up. And essentially, it's just choosing how the conversation continues. There's default, suggest more content, and targeted responses. So the default for a welcome message is like, you know, it just kind of assumes you've already like prompted the user with what to do, which we have here. But, you know, just say your zip code is basically our prompt to the user of what to do. We can also do suggest more content, which lets us manage this separately. And then use them shared across all of our different conversation items. So you can add more SSML here. You can add on-screen hints. So for example, on Alexa, those will show up at the bottom where it'll say like on an Echo Show or a Fire TV, it'll say like try Alexa, and then, you know, whatever you put in these hints. And on Google and Bixby, and also on certain chatbot platforms, these will show up as actually like tappable or clickable chips to carry on the conversation. So we can make use of that here. Although, you know, asking someone to ask for a specific zip code makes it a little bit more challenging. But for example, we could create one like here that is mayor of 02110, and we can have this just say your zip code, and we can actually move this down here. And we can create multiples here. As long as it's under 20 characters, it'll show up on Google. Everything else will show up on the other platforms. Doesn't really matter, but there's also like a limit of either like 3 or 8 or whatever, depending on your platform. But we can also save these follow-ups so that we can use them on other conversation items, and they'll show up in this drop-down. So we can like give it a title and reuse it. But I think for now this is fine. So yeah, we have our welcome message. We have some of our zip codes set up. Let's go make sure all this stuff is linked properly on Alexa. So coming back over here, we'll leave that. We don't need to save it. I'm going to refresh. I think I'm in the development version. All right, cool. So you'll notice here outside of our 4 top intents that we already created, we get all the Voicify stuff. So we have like general question intent, latest message, recipe search, and if you're building recipe apps, go-to steps, number intents, dynamics, and things like that, as well as some more built-in ones that Voicify supports too, not just the help, fallback, and stop. We also have yes, no, start over, event search, pause, resume, stuff like that, and then all these built-in slot types. Now, we also need to make sure our endpoint was adjusted. So right now, we're pointing to FindMyRep, right? This is where our existing one was set up, but instead we want to change this to using the Voicify one. So over in settings, in deployments, that's where we had this list down here. So I just need to grab the Alexa direct fulfillment one, and we can paste that and save it. All right, so now let's go and test it out. We can turn on testing for development because that's the version we just updated. We can say open FindMyRep. Cool. So we have our response here that's coming from our Voicify response, I think, because we're on an old one. Or no, this is actually still hitting the old one. Our endpoint might not have finished. Let's go back here. All right, we've got FindMyRep. We've got our endpoint. Oh, you know what it is? I have the actual live version too. And it's probably hitting that one. Let's see. We'll be able to find out real quick, basically, if we just like try to hit the governor one and it hits the wrong one. Let's see. We do have display interfaces. We can turn that on. We can also support videos and audio player. We also can support can fulfill intent and APL, so I want to turn those on too. So let's save this stuff. And we do need to, maybe we should need to rebuild. So once this model is done building, we should be able to hit it. Now we need to go do the same thing on our dialog flow agent as well, where we need to like swap out the URL. But let's go take a look at our agent to see if we have all that new stuff added. Let's sign out of this somewhere. Gotta sign into the other account that I have. This one. Okay, so in FindMyRep, same thing, right? We have our existing intents, governor zip code intent, all zip code intent, and then we have all the other stuff that Voicify added as well. So that's all fine and dandy, and everything else should work, but we need to also adjust our webhook endpoint, which we'll get to when we start testing, but kind of want to wait for this to finish building. And then once we have this, we can actually set up our integration in our webhook and start actually adjusting our code a little bit and clean up all that nonsense we talked about earlier that we had to custom write. And then we'll start to build onto the conversation, get these resubmitted again with the latest updates, and then we should be good. Okay, full build successful. Let's see if it's going to open the right one now. Okay, we got the development version turned on. Open, FindMyRep. If we say 02110. Oh, I forgot I gotta type them out every time. Okay, we're gonna open FindMyRep. I don't know why it sent that twice. Let's see if we do 02110. Okay, let's take a look here. We got the number intent, which means that we're going to have a conflict when asking for the raw zip code, which we can still handle, but we can also say governor of, I'm going to copy this. We can also turn off that number intent if we don't want it, but we can basically support both if we need to. Okay, cool. So this is using the updated one. We have the you asked for a governor. So that just sort of shows you that, you know, we have this custom intent that we already had, and now instead of going to this endpoint and then doing this logic and going in here and pulling out the slot and all that, we're actually just hitting this conversation item in Voicify for the governor one. So let's talk about that issue we just ran into, right? So because I said 02110, Alexa basically has to determine between two different intents that technically have conflicts which one it should use. So we have the all zip code intent where you just say a zip code and we're using the number slot type for that. There's also a built-in one from Voicify called the Voicify number intent, which if we go take a look at is a very similar structure. So if we go to build, look at all zip code intent, we have the raw zip code one here, and if you look at the type of zip code, it's an Amazon number, right? So we support the phrase for just whatever the number is, go to here. When we added the Voicify stuff, we also got the Voicify number intent, which only has one utterance, and it's the number. But this number type is also an Amazon number. So we have two different intents with two utterances that are just the slot, and the slot type is the same. So we have a conflict. There's two ways we can handle this. We could either go create a number conversation item in Voicify and handle that as the same way we would the all zip code intent, or we can remove the Voicify one and use the one we already have. So let's go do the second one, and if we need to, we can always revert it. So over in settings, we have our abstracted interaction model, which is, this is all the intents that Voicify sends to the different platforms. And all the way down at number, we can just disable this. Now, we should probably also disable the other stuff that like doesn't align with what this app needs. So for example, like we're not doing recipes in here, so we can disable all this recipe stuff. Don't really need this select by position. We might later. Can keep latest messages, and we don't need go to step. That's kind of related to following a process, and we don't need the event stuff either, or this one. Right, so we can disable all these and then just save them, and now that'll also distribute those changes to each of the platforms. Like I said, we don't have to go in here now and change any of these, and we don't have to go in here and change any of those. Once it saves, Voicify is going to kick off another syncing process to your interaction model, and so you'll have those updates deployed. It just takes a couple minutes for Amazon and Google to sort of pick it up, and then you're off and running, and we won't have that conflict anymore. So once this intent is removed, we should see, if we just say a zip code, that we go to the all zip code intent, and then we'll be able to process it from there. So let's go and set up our webhook and migrate our actual code. So let's head back over into .NET land, and actually start talking about code and how we wire all these things up. So I should probably actually take a step back. Before we get into this code, let me break down how integrations actually work in Voicify. So one of the core features of Voicify, beyond just like the ability to build and design and set up and deploy conversations and all that, is also the ability to easily integrate with other platforms, including official integrations that me and my team build with our partners. It also enables developers to go and build their own and really streamline the process of what you would normally have to do with all the custom code that we wrote. Like in the end, we're not going to need any of this nonsense of like, if this thing happened, do this. Instead, it's really just like, this is the endpoint for getting this type of response, go do that. And it's more, I guess, sort of similar to traditional API development. So for people that already build APIs or sort of typical application development, it's going to be easier to sort of wrap your head around that stuff, because you don't have to worry about the natural language stuff. You don't have to worry about all these stupid if statements everywhere. Instead, you can set up different endpoints for different things logically. Like, it's insane how much sense that makes, instead of one mega endpoint where you have to worry about what is actually in this thing to define your business logic. It's sort of like a backwards way of API thinking, where we want to be able to support both. So you could, of course, just make one endpoint that Voicify sends all the stuff to, and you do your business logic just like we do now. And that might be the easiest way to migrate, if we just have, basically copy this over to an abstracted one and handle it. But I'd like to sort of do it in a cleaner way instead of having all this gross stuff in the controller. It can be much more streamlined. So the way that works is that we need to register a webhook or multiple webhooks, and then choose where in the conversation those are used. So basically, like, you create a webhook in Voicify or attach an integration, it registers itself so that you can then use it in the CMS to make updates. So for example, we can go create a new custom webhook, and similarly we could also add any of the other official integrations here. Like if we wanted to be able to text users or handle payments, we could do that very easily, but I'm just going to focus on the custom webhook stuff here. So like I said, logically, we want to be able to break down all of these if statements and stuff. So we already have covered this, right? Like, this is gone. We have that as a welcome message in Voicify. This is gone. We have this as the help message in Voicify. And this is gone. So the only thing, because this is the fallback, the only thing we have to worry about is like this case, right? And we don't want to have this zip code check. So really, we just need to worry about like getting the zip code, getting the response from our provider, and then like sending that back down, which is also even easier because now we only have to do that once. We don't have to do the Alexa specific stuff to get the slot value out of zip code. We don't have to do the Google specific stuff. We don't need multiple controllers and multiple endpoints for all the platforms. We can just make one, get the single slot out that Voicify sends us, and then get the response and send it back down one time. And we don't have to care about the Alexa structure for the response. We don't have to care about the Google structure. We can just say, like, dude, take this content and just show that however you need to, and Voicify will handle the abstraction, which is super nice. So let's do that for the different scenarios here, because we're also not going to want, I guess, one more thing to add is in our info response service, we already break down again by like what intent it is. So like this all zip code intent, we have this if statement. I don't want to have to do this either. We have these switch cases down here. Like these should go. Like this is already handled in Voicify. So let's do this. We'll make a different endpoint for the all zip code intent, governor, mayor, and senator. And that way we can actually structure it to say, like, logically as a RESTful API, if you need the senator stuff, here's the senator endpoint, and here's the senator response, similar for the other ones as well. So let's do one for all. Get all reps info from zip code. That's what I want to name this integration. Description gets all the information about all levels of government available for the provided zip code. Then we need to provide the URL. So this is still going to be our public-facing URL. It still needs to be HTTPS. So we need to have that findmyrep.azurewebsites.net, but we need to, actually get a different route set up. So we'll define that in our code, but for now we'll call it this FindMyRep. We'll call Voicify, and then we'll say this is the all reps URL. Now the type is important. There's multiple types of webhooks and integrations that Voicify can support. It's not all just like here's the webhook and you have to provide a response everywhere in your app. It's all contextual, and it's important because it enables you to just build your contextual responses in Voicify and then build your contextual webhooks to handle things if you need to. So there's two different types. There's response resolvers and events. Response resolvers are the ones that actually need to send stuff back down, so that's what we're going to use. And then we can either choose to use them at the entire app level, the folder level, or the individual content item level, which is what we're going to do. But we also have the ability to add these other event stuff. So if you want to see every time a request gets sent to your app, send all that stuff somewhere else, or even like syncing between CMS stuff. But for now, just to sort of show what we're working on here, we've got our content item resolver, and then we can also authenticate if we need to by sending a token to validate that the request is coming from Voicify, which I'll skip for now, but we might want to add later. So now I can add this, but what I want to do before we start using it is also create one as a sample to show you all what's being sent up, so that way we can define our models and everything. So we'll say this is sample webhook. Used to see what is sent. Now for the link, I'm going to use webhook.site. It's a really cool service here where they provide you a random URL, right? So this URL, which I'm going to use, and then they'll show us everything that gets sent to that URL. So including like if I just go to it, we see that we got that GET request from the browser and it didn't send anything. But what I can do is register that as the URL for what I want to send on my webhook request from Voicify, and then again set that as a content item resolver, and then again you'll see like if I set like some random text here for a token, we can use that. So now that we have these two webhooks, we can go and use them in different spots in the app. So for example, let's go to this governor zip code intent, and here I'm going to select the sample one and hit update. Some other cool things we can do here, when we attach a webhook, we can also add additional parameters. So if I say like this is something, and then like the value is again just like random text, that'll also get sent to the webhook, and then you can use that for more information or like configuration details. So we have this attached to the governor zip code intent, which means if I go back to Alexa and back to test, we'll say open FindMyRep. Not sure why things are getting added twice here, but that's fine. If I say governor of 02110, we'll save this too, right? So we got the you asked for a governor, which is good. It means we hit this actual response. Now, if we go to the webhook site, we can see the post. So let's sort of dissect this data here. We have an authorization header that was sent up to us and a Voicify authorization header with the value that we set as the token. So that's the first thing we can use. We can use that to validate that the request came from Voicify, that we registered if we basically just keep a key on our API and in Voicify. And then we have this massive request body that gets sent. So you'll see here we have the request names and the title of the conversation item that was hit. And that's because it's this title and this request name. We also have what the response is that we're going to send back down, and this is what we can basically override. So we have the title again of the conversation item, and then we have the content. You asked for a governor. That content is this field. We also have like the created date. We have those parameters so that this is something that random text gets sent there. We also now have this original request, which has some abstracted stuff that we can use. So for example, we get the slots. This slots object is going to be the same thing regardless of whether it's coming from Amazon or Google or wherever else. We'll have those raw slot values. We also get the session attributes, which includes the history of the conversation so far. So for example, we can already know that this person came from the welcome message because the content ID here is the same as the ID from our welcome message. We know that the request came from Alexa. We have the session ID and user ID, the app ID, the request ID. We know if it supports displays or video or audio depending on the device that was sent up. And then even still, we have the original request from Alexa, right? Like we have this whole object here, which is all the same stuff that is right here. Because this is what Alexa is sending to Voicify, and then Voicify is sending to our webhook. And basically, the way that we set up those webhooks is to never get in the way of what you might want to do. So that's what I was saying, like in our existing code, we could just keep all this stuff if we wanted to, and just instead of handling the skill request here, have a method where we just pull out that native request as a skill request, and that's totally fine. And yeah, I mean, that's basically everything we need. So the cool thing is, like, we don't have to care about this native request at all. The important things that we need to know are the original request, what the slots are. We need to know what the conversation item is that we hit, right? So we needed the request name. And even that, not really, because we'll set up different webhooks, right? So like we have this zip code now, we can use it. So we can go back into Visual Studio now and start setting up the actual endpoint, swap the webhooks and make sure that works, and then we'll do the same thing for the other ones too. So over here, let's create a new controller, and we'll call this the Voicify controller. And it'll inherit from controller base. And we need to set up our route to be API controller. I don't know why that looks like it's spelled wrong. Oh, I guess we don't need that. And we need to have a reference to our response service, but I don't think we're going to need to worry about, we might be able to make this abstracted, so let's do this. Private, read-only, civic, response service, civic info response service. And we'll generate the constructor for it. Now we need to set up those HTTP post endpoints. So we say HTTP post, and then we have the all reps. That's what we named our URL before. Click async task. We'll just take in an action result for now, and we'll say handle all reps. So from body, we're probably going to want to define some models here, but for now I'll throw a dynamic in just so we can see some stuff come through, and we'll say request, and for now we'll return just OK with an empty string. Yikes, Visual Studio. So what we're going to want to do is break up and clean up this method for get response async. Instead, what we need to do is handle like get all reps versus like get governor and get whatever, and then we can have those as separate methods that we can call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate this. We'll keep this one here just because we're going to need it still for our other stuff before we deprecate it. And so we'll get the get all reps response async. We don't even need the intent. We just need the zip code. So we don't need this if statement, and then basically like everything below this can go. And that can go because we're guaranteeing we have something. Right, so the same thing of wanting to go and like get the civic info, get the offices, loop over it, all that's fine, and then we can return the output speech and display text. Now, there's a certain data structure that Voicify expects to be sent back to that we also use, and it's abstracted still. So even if we're coming from Alexa or Google, we can still handle it the same way. And we're going to want to set up models for it, but we can always do that in a little bit. But we're going to say here all reps response, and we'll await the get all. Oh, we need to put it in our interface. Duh. I'm going to take this, go up to our interface, and we'll put that in there. So we're going to want to call this. Now, again, we're going to need to have an actual model so we can pull this stuff out more cleanly. But for now, to get the zip code, if we look at the request JSON that came through in the webhook.site, we need the request.originalRequest.slots.zipcode. So we can do that. Do request original request slots zip code to string. And we'll even do that. So now when we get our all reps response, we're going to want to build our full response out. So if we say var Voicify response equals new, and again, there's just a specific structure that we need here. If we say data is new, then we can say content equals all reps response dot. How is this dynamic, man? As string. We should get our output speech. Yeah, so I say what we need. I think this is right. Not sure what it doesn't like there. Oh, we're missing a semicolon. Classic. Okay. And then we'll just return okay with Voicify response. And that should actually handle the JSON stuff. Cool. So we can test this locally still before we even send it up, just to just validate the business logic, where we'll just send up a request that at least has the zip code in that structure. So we'll load this up on Swagger. We can go to all reps, and we can say a new object in here, and we'll say original request that, and then we need to get the slots and zip code. Actually, we can probably just take, why don't we just take this? Oops. Oh, can I copy this? Like, we're just going to actually send this whole thing up that was sent to the webhook site. Make sure we get the response back. Different browser. Send. Boom. We got our response back. Easy peasy. So to validate this, I'm going to deploy it again to the Azure Web App. We haven't affected any of the other controllers, so everything will still run fine. And we'll savagely right-click publish this. And once it's up, now we can go to our all zip code intent. Yeah, I don't need to change that. All zip code intent, and then we'll add the webhook here. So we go to add webhook, get all reps from zip code, and click update. Okay, so this is up. Over in Alexa, I'm going to refresh this session. We'll say open FindMyRep. Now we can also use this to see if our interaction model update finished. So if I just type in the zip code, hopefully we only get the all zip code intent. Let's see, we still getting a number intent here? We are. Alright, let's do it the other way then, where in our zip code requests, we're going to add a new, oh actually I don't want to do that. Let's just go to the Alexa side and remove it. Build, and get rid of this. We just got to rebuild it. Save, build. While this is building, we can go set up the other ones now too. We're in the Voicify controller. We can create one for our governor one, our mayor one, and all that. But we're also going to want to make some models for these. So let's go into models, because I'm sick of using dynamics. And we'll create a folder here for Voicify stuff. Voicify. We'll separate request from response models. So we'll say a new folder, request, new folder, response. And then we'll add a class here for Voicify request. And we also need a Voicify original request. So we can say Voicify assistant request. And now this has the slots on it. So we can add a dictionary here of string to string, say slots. And our Voicify request has a Voicify assistant request called original request. And our response, we're going to want to create a Voicify response. And then we'll have a Voicify response data, Voicify response data. And now this has that content property on it, which is just a string. So we'll say string content. And then our response is going to need that data. So we'll say Voicify response data called data. All right, so there's obviously tons of other properties we need to encapsulate there, but these are the only ones we're using for now. So for this, we can say Voicify request. And for this, we'll say Voicify. Actually, why don't we just create a method here? Private Voicify response build response, and we'll say string content. And we'll return a new, and the data will also be new, and the content will be content. Right, so that way we don't even have to worry about this. And we'll just return okay with build response with all reps response to output speech. Now we need to clean this up. We need original request slots at zip code. So that's it. I mean, this controller endpoint is now clean. It's separated. It's literally 2 lines of code. And it also means we can do that separation for like the governor, the mayor one, and everything else. And all we have to do is like get whatever that data is and return the response. We don't care what platform it's on. We don't care where they're even at in the conversation, because the rest of that is handled when we build it in Voicify. All right, let's go back over and test just to make sure that dynamic stuff worked. So if we say open FindMyRep, I'm going to stage here 0, 2, 1, 1, 0. You asked for all government. Okay. Oh, I think I know why that didn't work. Integrations. This URL is wrong. We have this /API, then all reps. Update. And I think we ended the session here too. Okay, so we can literally, we have this extension from Jovotech to be able to just like repeat these, but it seems to be kind of acting weird. Okay, so we opened it. Now we can just resend the zip code one. And there we got our response back. Cool, so we know it's working, and now we have our object structure. So now let's go and set this up for each of the other ones. So if we have all reps, we're going to want mayor. We're going to want governor, and we're going to want senator. Right, so handle mayor, handle governor, and handle senator. So now instead of just saying get all, we're going to go and set up different responses here. So we'll do this. We'll say get mayor response, senator, and governor. Get governor, senator. So in our actual implementation, we basically need to like break out each of these like if statement stuff here. So aside from this, right, we're now in this else statement, and we need to grab this stuff. So this logic we can keep in one place and then just get the different thing and get rid of this switch statement. So let's create a method here that takes in the official, and then we'll have the separate ones there as well. So if we have a private are we going to need to even do anything? Okay, no. So we can return a tuple, string output speech, string display text, and we'll say get official response. And this needs to take in an official. And we'll paste this stuff, and now basically we can get rid of this. So now when we have a public task of this exact same stuff, right? Actually, we'll just grab this signature. Public async, and this will be the get mayor response. We'll say var official equals, and we want mayor, and we'll return get official response with official. And now basically we just do this for the other two, governor and senator. So we have get governor and senator. This is get local gov, get local senator. Now I think I messed up the names here, right? So we've got get senator response, get governor response, get mayor response, get governor, get mayor reps response. We don't want that. All right, cool, we're covered there. So now in our controller, we are good to go. So I'm going to publish this, and then we need to go register those other webhooks in Voicify for the other 3 scenarios. So back over here on integrations, we'll keep the sample webhook in case we want to use it, but we'll end up replacing it when we attach the other one. But I'm going to keep this URL handy, and we're going to say new custom webhook. This is get governor for zip code, gets the governor's info for the given zip, and then instead of all rep, it's going to be governor. Type is that content item response resolver. We don't need a token. Another one, custom webhook, get senator for zip code, gets the senator and contact info for a given zip. This will be senator. Type content. Cool. All right. And then the last one we need is what? Mayor. Another custom webhook. Get mayor for zip code. Gets the local mayor's info. And this is mayor. Same type. Good. Cool. So now back in our app, let's go attach those to those different ones. So we've got governor. We'll go over here. We'll remove the sample webhook so we're not sending extra requests out. And then we want the governor one. Update. Back to that folder. Senator. Back to integrations. Senator. And then mayor. Integrations. Mayor. Cool. So that whole time we haven't had to touch any of our platform specific stuff, which means that even in the middle of this session, well, we might have to refresh the session because I think we technically ended it. Right? Should end. Oh no, should end session false. Good. Okay. So we can now say governor of 02110 in the middle of the same session without having to redeploy anything else. And this seemed to hit. Yeah, governor zip code. Oh, did we attach the wrong one? Hold on. Governor. Governor? No, get governor for zip code. Oh. We didn't update our controller, so all of those are now going to return the all response, which is good. That means that at least our webhook worked. Everything is being sent to what we told it to do. So if we look at this, right, we got the governor intent, and we got this full response with SSML and the card and everything, because we hit the governor endpoint, right? Like we hit this endpoint, but we're still saying get all responses. So instead of getting all, we need to get gov. This should get mayor, and this should get senator, right? And we can just publish that again. So same thing still applies. We can now just repeat this one, and now we should get the governor response back that we expect. I don't know why whenever I click this button from the Chrome extension, I'm getting two of these, but either way, now we see we actually get the governor, Charles Baker. Here's all his info. Cool. So like that's the migration is done. Everything is there, and now we can actually use the rest of Voicify for building out the rest of our conversation. And we can actually make our webhooks even smarter without having to write more code. So the important thing to note here is basically that with everything that we just wrote there, we can delete this controller, and this controller in its entirety. We can delete this entire section here, everything but these cleaner methods. And we can get rid of all these models. We don't need the Dialogflow model. We don't need the Bixby model. And like we literally have the whole thing done in like 50 lines of code, and it works on all those platforms. So we get the benefit of Voicify deploying to all those platforms, and we get that benefit when we're actually developing code for it as well, which is exciting. So I'm gonna go take a 2-minute break. I'm out of coffee, which is just always bad news. So I'm going to go get coffee, and then let's actually update. Let's start building out this app a little bit more. What I want to do is to be able to say, like, if you ask for the governor of a zip code, I want to prompt the user to say, like, okay, here's your governor info. Do you want to learn about your mayor? And then if they just say yes, then we go and get the mayor, which is going to introduce some new things that we can do with the Voicify webhook that's still very easy to set up. And affords us the ability to basically keep track of things contextually without having to write a bunch of code or store user information or anything else. So cool. I'm going to take 2 minutes, go pour some more coffee out, and I'll be right back. All right. Hello. Cool. So, like I said, let's go and move into updating the actual flow and experience a little bit. And now I actually have the energy to do so, brought to you by Iced Coffee. So, what I want to be able to do, just to sort of clarify the flow, is I want to say if you've already asked for something with that zip code, you should be able to just get the next one without having to actually state the zip code. And I want to be able to prompt people to get more information. I don't want them to just be like, all right, who's my governor? Get their phone number and move on. The more that people can easily access and the more they can do it in a conversational way, the better off it's going to be. So there's a couple of different flows I want to set up. Maybe it'll help to sort of write them down if we just throw them on Notepad. So I want to be able to say, like, if the user asks for governor, ask them if they want their mayor. If the user asks for senator, ask them if they want their governor. I can sort of like go like a step down, right? Like senator, then to governor, then to mayor. And then, you know, if they ask for mayor, ask them if they want senator, and sort of like circle back up. So it's like senator is federal government. Okay, you ask for your senator. Do you want to learn about your governor, sort of state government level? You ask for state governor, state level. Do you want to get your city level? And then like city level, do you want to get back up? It's sort of like what I think logically makes sense in terms of how to prompt them. But basically, what I want to do is like, if they say yes, then just give them the info. Like they shouldn't have to restate the zip code. We should keep track of that for them, right? Like create context around the conversation. Like they've already given us that information. We shouldn't make them repeat it. And then they can always ask about a different senator or governor or government for a different zip code as well. So let's start there. And then I think there's also some interesting things we could do with location permissions. Maybe this is like the next thing, right? So this is like, let's say part 1 of updates, and then part 2 of updates is like mayor near me, right? Like handling this, and that's all they have to say. Mayor slash senator slash governor, or like my mayor slash senator slash governor. So being able to just like state those types of things where we can get even smarter and not have to like make them say their zip code. We can go like get their location information if they've made it available to us by handling like the permission requests for it. And then even still, if they didn't, like if you said something like this, we could still prompt them to be like, all right, who's my senator and my governor? Okay, what's your zip code? And I'll tell you. But enabling people to talk more like this is going to be more sort of natural as well. But let's start with this. Let's start with advancing the flow of the conversation, and then we'll get into enabling, you know, really just like new features. And luckily, all of this, like, we shouldn't have to write too much more code for it. We'll just have to design it in Voicify and then adjust a couple things to keep track of the zip code. So the way we handle this is using those follow-ups like we talked about before, where we talked about the suggest more content follow-up on like our welcome message, I think, right? That's where we did it. Right, so we've got this suggest more content one, and we can put in more follow-up speech, and we can put in hints and all that good stuff. But there's this other one for targeted response. So let's go implement one of those rules where if I ask for senator, I want to be prompted for governor. So down here in the targeted response section, we get the same things that we got for the suggest more content, but like also way more control. So we can add this the follow-up language. We can say, would you like to hear, would you like to learn about your governor? All right, that's a yes or no prompt. And now we have the speech there. Again, we have all the SSML tools we want as well. But now we actually choose the next conversation items the user can go to that we're pushing them towards. And we can still leave it open-ended, meaning like they can still ask for something else if we don't flip this switch on. If we do, it means they have to say one of the things that matches here. But that also gives us the ability to add things like contextual fallbacks and help messages. So like when I'm in this part of the conversation where I asked about the senator zip code, and then I say something else that doesn't match, I can provide a different fallback in that scenario than like the normal, I don't have that information. I don't think we'll need to go that far because it's still a pretty simple flow to the conversation. But what I want to be able to do is push the user to be able to ask about their governor. And I also want to enable them to just say yes or no. So let's do this. We're going to create a new folder, and we'll say governor options is the name of the folder. And then we're going to create new conversation items for what are called simple choices, which is basically yes and no. Learn about governor. And then we'll add another one for Add another one for don't learn about governor. The more I type, it's like I feel like I can't type or spell or anything. Okay, so we're selecting these ones now, and we add these as our targeted responses too. So that means that we'll go finish these. You'll see they're incomplete because we haven't added responses or anything to it. But you can also ask for the governor straight away too. So these are our 3 targeted responses. These are the 3 things, the 3 options that we want the user to go to. But because we're not enforcing it, they could still just ask another thing, and that's totally fine. And we can also add hints and stuff there too. So let's save this, and then I'm going to go and expand these governor options and handle like learn about governor. So choose our language. We want to say if they say yes, right? We just say, is this a yes one or a no one? Then we'll put a placeholder response here to say like, sorry, I don't have that, because instead we want the webhook to handle that response. And then on the governor level, we'll get to adding the targeted response for the mayor, so we can like cascade, like ask your senator, okay, do you want to hear about your governor? Yes. Okay, here's your governor. Want to hear about your mayor? Yes. Okay. Do you want to hear about your senator? Yes. And we'll get in that potentially infinite conversation loop, which is cool. So for now, we'll just say, sorry, I don't have that. And then let's go set up the no one. And then we're going to go attach webhooks to the yes one as well to go get the governor info. So in the no one, again, we'll just select English because that's our language. And this is no. And then for this response, if they just like, no, I don't want to know about the governor, we can say, what else can I help with then? You can say a zip code or ask for a specific office by zip code. Is zip code 1 word or 2 words? Okay, it is 2 words. And we'll just leave a suggest more content on there. That way the session doesn't end. So here's what I think we can do, right? For saying yes, I want to learn about the governor. It's the same. We want the same thing to happen as if they just asked for the governor anyway. So we should use the same webhook. But the problem is that our webhook, this get governor for zip code webhook, and the logic here in the Voicify controller for governor, it's expecting that we have the slot of zip code, which it's fine if we say governor of 02110. We get the zip code. But if I just say yes, that's an entirely different flow. It's not even hitting the same conversation item with that custom request. So we need the ability to handle the context if you said something from senator or governor or mayor or whatever, to keep track of that response. So what we can do is use Voicify's additional session attributes feature, where we're going to tell Voicify in our response that we want it to keep track of the zip code for the rest of the conversation. Voicify will then keep that in storage for you. You don't have to worry about like session management on your own. You don't have to worry about data storage or anything like that, setting up a database or anything, right? You don't even have to worry about putting it in memory. When you do that in the response object, you also will then get that same exact object sent back up to you in the next request. So, for example, we hit that, do you want to, when someone says they want the senator of like 02110, we hit this endpoint. We get the response from the senator stuff. If we then pass down to Voicify in this same response data what session attributes we want, then the next request will also be able to get session attributes, which means that we can basically say, like, for all of these endpoints, if we already have the zip code in session attributes, use it. If not, go get the slot. And if there's none, then like we messed something up and we should probably return an error. So what we should do is, before we build each of these responses, we should also pass in a zip code. Now in our response data, we can add the new property. This is another one that Voicify supports. That's a dictionary of string to object called additional session attributes. And this is basically add or update. So we can set this on each of them, and even if it's already there, it'll just update it. So if someone switches to another zip code in the same conversation, we'll update to that, and it'll switch the context. So like, let's say if I say, who's the governor of 02110? And it says it's Charlie Baker, and then I say, it's going to prompt me, do I want to learn about the mayor? And I say yes. We'll take the 02110, do the lookup, and then it'll be prompted to say, do you want to learn about your senators? If I say just governor of 01887, we'll then just keep track of 01887. So then again, if I ask for mayor, I'll get the 01887 mayor, and it'll switch. So it'll work out perfectly this way. So we've got additional session attributes, and this is just a dictionary of string to object. So in our response here, we can say that we have a new one, and then the output here is going to be zip code and zip code. So now here, we want to get the zip code ahead of time in each of these. So let's have a private string get zip code from our Voicify request. So that way we can say if request.session attributes is there, which we'll also need to add, use that. If not, return the spoken one. Or we should check to see if there's a spoken one first, actually. So let's say if we have request, if request.original request.slots.contains key zip code, and now we need to explicitly check true because we got nullables all over the place, then we're going to return this bad boy. And then otherwise we'll return null for now. Slots. What doesn't this like? Oh, we need, oh my goodness, gotta return it. Okay, so we'll say var zip code equals get zip code of request. We'll do that on each of these. And then instead of having to pass in this slot, now we just pass in zip code. And in each of the outputs, we need to pass zip code around. Basically, we're just going to keep track of this everywhere. We want to know what zip code you have at any given point. I'm missing a closing brace. Cool. So let's take a look at what that looks like running locally. I should have kept that webhook.site up. Dang. Okay, so in Swagger, in all reps, try it out. Where's my paste thing? Stop. Right, so if we send zip code is 02110, that's all we really need. We get that additional responses with 02110. So now let's go handle it on the request side. And I think it's in the same assistant request. So we'll say another dictionary of string to object. We can say session attributes. Right, we can always check this in the docs too. I can never remember my object structures and I don't want to pull up all that code. So now, back in our controller here where we have this private one, let's say if request.original request.session attributes contains key zip code, and that is explicitly true, then return request original slots at zip code. Guess we don't really need the we don't need these null checks here because we do it ahead of time. Oops. Right, okay. So let's publish this. Cool, we're good there. We've got the get governor for zip code about learning about the governor when you go from senator. So if we go back to senator now, we see our targeted responses. If we say yes, then we should be good to go. So let's try that out. I'm going to say senator of 02110. Alright, I'm going to add that to phrases too. So now we get that prompt. Would you like to learn about your governor? If I say yes, hopefully everything works and we get the response. No. Alright, we got the sorry I don't have that. So it didn't like one of the structures we have. We did hit the yes intent. The sorry I don't have that is coming from our learn about the governor request. If we say yes, we say sorry I don't have that, which basically means that we didn't actually return the proper response structure, which is probably my fault. So let me go check the docs here. We've got a, just need to look up JSON references. Additional session attributes. And then we need to check the request. Original request, session attributes. So, why aren't we getting what we wanted? Get governor for zip code. Let's add the webhook site one, and then we'll test it locally. So instead, I'm going to re-grab the sample webhook and add it, and I'll remove the governor one for now on that yes. So now if we, again, just repeat this one, the senator of whatever, which is probably going to give me some grief. Okay. So weird that it's doing it twice. Then we say yes. Okay. Let's check webhook site. This is what we wanted, right? Let's make sure we get our session attributes are here. And we got conversation turn history, and we have zip code. So let's take this. I gotta copy the clipboard up here because it's too damn big. And let's run this locally. So we're gonna try to hit the governor endpoint. And we'll just pass in all this stuff because that's what was just sent to it. Alright, so we're getting an exception thrown. Zip code was not present in the dictionary. Did I just literally misspell something? Oh, idiot. Okay, let's rebuild. We'll make sure again that it's working locally. We need to to string here just because it's technically an object, because you can send back like complex objects and keep track of all that stuff. That was a me speed tabbing through mistake there. All right, let's double check now. If we send governor, shoot, gotta go get all this stuff again. All right, now we get that. All right, so let's republish, and then we'll hit it again on the Alexa side just to validate the whole flow. Publish, shamelessly right-click publish. Also, while I'm going through this, I know I haven't shown a lot of Voicify dev stuff and integrations into Voicify dev stuff before, so feel free to ask questions if you're not sort of following what we're doing here, or even if you just want to see a different part of the platform or the APIs we're using and stuff too. I'm happy to walk into any details that you're looking for. But otherwise, we're going to continue here and try to hit this response again. So again, still the same session, which is cool. I can just repeat hitting senator. Some reason it's being sent twice, but I don't really care. Now if I just say yes, we should get Charlie Baker. No, why? Oh, we still got the other webhook on it. Remove sample webhook, get governor, back to Alexa. Eventually I'll stop rushing through. Still in the same session. And now I say yes again. Please give me Charles Baker. Boom, cool. So now we need to go set that up for the rest of them, right? So now when we get the governor, we want to prompt them for mayor, and we'll have the same yes and no option sort of set up. If we hit mayor, we want to go to senator, same thing, flip back up. Now another thing that I want to point out is that we have this, like, you can ask for another rep's codes, another rep, hold on, you can ask for another zip code's reps. That's hard-coded in the back end, and I don't like that. I want to be able to manage these responses Even this, like, here's what I found one is kind of weird. I'd almost rather be able to manage that as structure in Voicify, but we can get into that later. So now that we're actually sort of handling follow-ups, we can get rid of that from our responses. So if we go to our civic info stuff here, let's just get rid of these, right? We don't care for these. Nope, we're gonna prompt people more specifically, and we're gonna use Voicify for it. So more code that's gone. We'll republish it. And now let's go set up the flow for the other one. So if we go back to zip code requests, we just did the senator to governor. So now we need governor to mayor. So if we go to our governor zip code one, we'll add a targeted response. We'll say, would you like to learn about your mayor? We'll grab the mayor intent in case they say that, and then we'll add another folder for mayor options. And in here, we'll stub out 2 other symbol choices, learn about mayor, and not learn about mayor. And we'll grab both of these. Cool, save that, and let's go scaffold the other one for mayor to senator, and then we'll go fill in those responses, attach webhooks, and all that good stuff. So targeted response. Would you like to learn about your senator? We'll grab senator one, and we'll make a new folder, senator options, 2 simple choices, learn about senators, senator, and what am I doing here now? Don't learn about senator. We could probably actually have the same default no option. Now I'm thinking about it. Actually, yeah, we only need the yes options. The no ones are going to be like the same responses. I don't want to manage that in 2 places. So let's save this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in where we set up the don't learn about the governor. Don't learn about other, back to general is what this is. So this is just like if anyone says no, then we can say what else can I help with. You can ask about whatever, right? So I'm gonna save this with the new title, and I want to move this up a level. So I'll say move to, and we'll put it in zip code requests because it's all in there. So now instead of being like governor specific, when we get to the senator response, right, we have it still there. Don't learn about other, back to general. But now for the one that I just set up on mayor, we can just delete this because we don't need to have a specific one for when you say you don't want to learn about the mayor. We just need like a regular sort of removal one. So like that was on governor zip code intent. Down here, we can add the no option that's at the top level. So just select that one. And then from the mayor zip code intent, we can do the same thing. So down here, we'll add the don't learn about others. So now it's just like the same thing on each one. It doesn't need to be special if you just say no wherever. Cool. So now we have, if you go from senator to governor, we need the learn about governor we've got. We need to learn about mayor. So this is a yes option, and it's in English. And we have a sorry, I don't have that response as our error case. We want a targeted response that's also, would you like to learn about your senator? Because if you go from yes, I want to learn about the mayor, we want to also be able to go up to senator. So we'll add the senator zip code intent, and then we'll add the yes on the senator option. And we can delete this one, which we'll do in a sec. And we'll save that. Oh, I need to add the webhook. So this is learning about the mayor. So we want mayor for zip code. Okay, we're good there. We also need on the yes option here for governor, we want that targeted response also going to the mayor. So if we go up, mayor options, learn about the mayor. Follow-up language, would you like to learn about your mayor? Saying like mayor and governor and senator so many times, like the words aren't even sounding right anymore. And now we need to get rid of this. We don't need this don't learn about senator option. We just want the learn about senator, which is English and is yes, and our default response is sorry, I don't have that. And our targeted response is going to be, would you like to learn about your governor? And we'll set up the yes option for the governor one. So governor options, yes, and we'll also add the governor zip code. And save, and we need to add the webhook to that as well. So going over to the integrations tab, this is senator, so we want senator for zip code. Alright, let's just make sure we've got everything. I think we do, and then we need to figure out what we want to do with the all zip code intent. But let's say if we say senator zip code, we want to get prompted to learn about the governor, and we've got the webhook on that, and we've got the targeted response for all those, so we're good. When we get to governor, by governor zip code intent, we want to learn about the mayor, or not, or mayor, and that's good. And then when we're on mayor, we want to get back up to senator. So you asked about mayor, if you want to learn about your senator, learn about senator, senator zip code request. So that's good. Now on these yes options, we basically want the same thing. So learn about senator should then prompt for governor. Oh, we're missing the no's. So we need to go back up. We need to grab the no options for each of these two. Same thing I imagine on all of these ones. Yeah, this one needs the no option. And does the governor one have it? Oh, this one needs the mayor intent and the no intent. Mayor and no. Cool. Alright, so let's try this out. I'm going to start a new session in the Alexa developer console. If we say open FindMyRep, and let's make sure the full loop works. So I should be able to say senator of 02110, then yes, 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 and just keep like looping over all of them. Senator of 02110. Alright, we got the senator. Would you like to learn about the governor? Yep. Here's your governor. Would you like to learn about your mayor? Yep. Here's your mayor. Would you like to learn about your senator? Yes. Fantastic. All right, we should just be in this loop now. Right? We can just say yes all day long. And now if we say no, we should break it and be able to do something else. Cool. Sweet. So looking at this flow, right, like we just did all of these updates. Let me see if I can commit this stuff that we've got here. We'll say implemented Voicify webhook. Oh, I've got the Bixby stuff. I'm in the wrong branch. Too late. Okay, that's fine. We'll end up merging this all into master at the end of the stream anyway. That way you guys can all grab it off GitHub. Cool. So everything is working now. What I wanted to see also was if the Civic API gave us any images, because that's one of the other things we can do from our webhook to Voicify is also like provide images back to each of those responses. So if we go to info provider, right? I want to know, like, does official have an image? Photo URL. Hell yeah. Okay. Let's do this. Instead of in our Civic info response, instead of returning these, why don't we just return a Voicify response from this. That way we can basically put this in there, and we don't have to worry about like returning all these ugly tuples. So I think I'm gonna do that, because like this is all duplicated code that like we shouldn't even need here. And our civic response service is in charge of building a response. So let's go do that. I'm gonna take this. We're gonna put it in here. We gotta grab namespaces all over the place here, but okay. And then for our one here, we're gonna return a Voicify response instead. We'll keep the original one that the other APIs are using, because that's fine. We don't need to affect those. Eventually, like when we get this republished and it's all set on Alexa and Google with the new version that's all through Voicify, we'll just like get rid of all this extra code too. But because we are just like half-ass publishing everything right to Azure, like that's still the same endpoint that the public stuff is hitting, so we need to make sure we don't break it. So that's why there's still some ugly code around. But for all these other ones, we can just grab and refactor and keep clean for the new stuff. And we got this, we got this. Let's keep this ugly one out of here. I might even like throw some deprecated, some obsolete flags on here. Don't use these, they're gross. It's also a Voicify response. All right. Obsolete as hell, get out of here. I'm gonna move this stuff up too. Just keep all this gross old stuff out of the way. Okay, so now we've got our pretty cool and new stuff here. So let's just adjust this to use our build response. So for our build response, we can take in content, zip code. Let's say we want to take in display text, and we want to take in an image URL. And we're going to want to like check for nulls on these before we add them. So we'll say var response is that, and then all the way at the bottom we'll return response. And this is going to be return build response null official dot photo URL. And we should pass in the zip code here so we can pass it all the way through and keep track of it. Zip code. Return build response. Don't need display text. Null, null, zip. So for these ones, let's just need to pass in zip code into each of them. Bop. Bop. Cool. So basically, if we have custom display text, we want to use it, and if we have an image URL, we should use it as the foreground image. So we can update our response data to handle the other stuff that we can send down. So there's content. We also have display text override. That's a Voicify property we can use. We're also going to want to add one for our media item, which is how we're going to handle images, but the same thing can also be used for like videos and things like that. So we'll say media content, and for now this just needs a string URL. But our Voicify response data can take in, I don't know why that tabbed in so far, media content, and I think it's large image is the one we want. But we can also add like video and audio files. Like you can send back audio player responses if you have like a podcast or like a song or something you want to play to. You can just send that back down with a URL. But we'll just worry about large image for now. So back in our response service, basically we just need to say like if string is not null or empty for display text, then response.data.displayText override equals display text. And then if string is not null or empty for image URL. Then we'll say dot image equals new, and the URL will equal the image URL. Pull in that namespace too. I should have put that in the response. Technically, this is actually sent up too, so we need both of them in the response and request, but either way. Okay, so now we got to go update our controller, clean this up a bit because we're no longer needing to call build response. We can just say all reps response. Clean this up a bit. We're just sending back what we get from our response service, which is much, much cleaner. Oh, I guess these aren't all reps response, huh? We'll just call these response. I'm gonna do that everywhere. Now that we don't need to like segment the different types. It's just the actual response that we're sending down. Okay. Now, I want to see if we even get one back down for one of the ones we've tried so far. Oh, build errors. What did I forget? Oh, duh. Get all reps response. We want to return build response. We won't use that. We'll pass in zip code. Okay, now let's publish it. Sweet. So if we try here, where we're going to try to get the URL, let's say if I just say like, yeah, governor, fine. Okay, so we don't have one for him. Do we have a photo URL here? Senator. Are we even grabbing the photo URL properly? Like, I want to know. Yeah, we're getting photo URL. I want to know if any of these even have a photo URL. I don't know. Here, you know what? I'm gonna take this. We're gonna run it locally, and we're gonna see if we can just get any photo URLs back. Okay, we're just gonna try different zip codes. Let's just do. I feel like senators and governors are gonna be the most likely. Oh, there is an image URL. Large image. Maybe I'm just using the wrong property here. Any Voicify devs in the chat want to tell me what the wrong property I'm using here for setting the foreground image? Let's see. General fulfillment response. Yeah, large image URL. What am I missing here? Do I need media type maybe? Or is it at a different level? Alright, content, large image. You can also set like background image and stuff too. Unless it's just Amazon not actually setting it. Let's hit Senator. Or maybe we shouldn't hit Senator yet, and that's the one with it. Oh yeah, okay. I'm not insane. We did it right. Boom. Edward J. Markey's image pulled in from that API as well. I think the issue is just that the governor doesn't have one. Right, like if I take this and grab all this stuff, let's hit governor. Let's make sure I'm not insane. Like Charlie Baker just doesn't have an image. Oh yeah, okay. That's fine. So we get null. Cool. So that means if we hit a rep that has an image, we're going to be able to pull it in. You can even see here, like Edward J. Markey's is right here. But then if we don't, everything still works fine, and we just get the response sent back down. This also means we should be able to handle the display text better. So if I just said like the 0 to 110 for the all, we are using a different display text there. Oh, I'm outside the skill. Hold on. Open FindMyRep. Yeah, okay, so we did get those line breaks now too, which we weren't getting before in our custom built one, even when we sent the display text back down. So because all we did was set that display text override on our Voicify response, like we set this property, we get the structure here, and this is actually like scrollable on a normal Echo Show, which is great. It makes it way easier to read. Although I still think these like double dashes are, we don't really need the 4s here, so maybe we should clean this up a bit. So we don't need it very like languagey, and there's still like some line breaks. So let's clean up the display text and stuff in our Civic Info Response service for the get all, right, as we're building it. We just want dash and office.name. I kind of want like \n. You can do the fully escaped. And we'll do the same thing for the email one. Okay. Stop this, redeploy. We'll just hit that same one again on Alexa. One other thing we do need though is because we got rid of that static response, we should go update our all zip code intents follow-up. We could ask for like, maybe this is a good way to get into the specifics too. Like if we give you all the data and then like you want to get into the specifics, maybe we should do that. So we can do that same setup here. Like, would you like to learn about your senator? And then we'll add the like senator zip code and the senator option for yes, and the no option. Right, that way we're not just like giving you data and leaving the mic open again. And we can actually make it more conversational even from there. So we'll do the same thing again. We'll just put in 02110. Oh, I'm out of the skill because again we had that end session. Type it out. You can also see that hint there too. Alright, cool. That's a little bit better. We need some spaces though. And we need to line break on the other one. Okay, so let's do office name. What even is this that's open? Oh, that's the APL export. We don't need that. Alright, office name, that. Then for each official, we want \r \n 1, 2, 3. Okay. What else kind of looked bad there? It's like running onto the office one. We're gonna line break that. And then instead of using these dashes, we'll use colons. Alright, let's see how that looks when we publish it. Alright, same one. 0, 2, 1, 1, 0. Alright, we're still not line breaking on the next official. I thought we just did that. Oh, we did it in the... Man. Okay. One more time, I think this will be nicer. Cool thing is now though, like we can just say yes and get into our senator. Once it's done deploying. Look at all these tabs of FindMyRep. Goodbye. So clean. Okay. This might have timed out. Yeah, okay. Oh, are we looking at our response service here? Are we not setting the session attribute for the get all reps? No, we're sending in the zip code. Okay. All right, that's fine. Cool. All right, let's do this. 02110. U.S. Senator Edward J. Markey. I wish I could indent these, but it doesn't seem to care about my line breaks. So that's a little bit better. And the spoken one is still fine, too. If I unmute this, you'll hear it.
By phone at 202-224-4543.
Right, because she's just going to read all that stuff out. But it's a little bit more readable. Cool. So now that we have this stuff all abstracted, and it's coming from all these different platforms, let's talk about some other places we can put it. You know, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the stream, we can talk about like Slack bots and Microsoft Teams bots and stuff like that. So why don't we switch over to talking about that stuff. So let me just commit this. Updated Voicify responses. So, you know, we mentioned this earlier in stream, but in Voicify, we basically can deploy to any of like the first-party channel providers that Voicify supports. So that's Alexa, Google, anything on Dialogflow, and then Azure Bot Service and Bixby too. So, you know, we already have our Bixby capsule basically ready to go. I can basically update that off stream, but for these other channels, right, like Microsoft Teams and Slack, one of the things that we can do is make use of Azure Bot Service, which is how we can deploy here in using our Azure account deployed Azure Bot Service, because they have channels for Slack and Microsoft Teams. And now because we've abstracted just about everything, you know, we can handle those requests and run it against Lewis instead of Dialogflow and do everything from there. So let's talk about that deployment process, and then we'll try to get an actual Teams bot built at least. I can take a look at that anyway. I might have to do it offline because I don't know if I have like a publicly showable Microsoft Teams account, but I can show you that process anyway. So the first thing we need to do, and you'll see here in the deployment steps, it's a little bit more manual than it was for Google and Amazon, which is just like sign in and link and you're good. We need to create an Azure bot registration. So I've got my Azure portal up right now, and so what I can do is just look up bot registration, and when I go to create, there's just a few things I need to set up. So I'm going to call this FindMyRep. The resource group is going to be Suave streams. It's going to be in East US. We're going to keep it free, and then this messaging endpoint is another one that Voicify provides. So down the same way that we grabbed our Alexa endpoint earlier, we're going to grab our bot service one, and we can paste that in here. I'm going to keep application insights off because I don't really need it. And then we'll hit create. But before we do, I'm going to want to keep a reference to this handle name. So that's going to go get created. Now, to link the two together in Voicify, we need to give it an app ID, password, and name. So the bot service name is the one that we just put in. You might have noticed in that create process, we saw the that we wanted to generate a new app ID and password. So we need to just grab the app ID that's generated, and then we're going to want to add a separate password for Voicify. We don't want to share app passwords between different platforms. So what I can do is, can I go to resource here? Is it done? Go to resource. In settings, here's that app ID, so I can take that. And then for password, we go to manage, and then it's going to add us to client ID and secrets. And then I'm going to click to generate a new one, paste it in, and hit link. I'm going to pull that off to the side, just because I don't want people knowing the client secret I'm generating. But I'm going to call it Voicify and set the expiration. Now we only get one chance to copy it before it disappears. So over here, I'm again just going to pull this over for now, set it and link it. Cool. So now we can bring this one back over. So we have our app ID and password set up, which means that if we have requests coming from our bot service, we can start to field them, and we can handle like the validation and stuff. How did this not join with the other window? What? Okay, whatever. We'll keep the 2 separate ones. So the next thing we need to do is create a Lewis app and then add those same other intents and stuff that we did as well. So if we go to lewis.ai and sign in with the same account, which again I'll just do over here. Actually, I might have just logged me in anyway. Yeah, okay. So I've already got a few apps here, but what I need is the authoring key, which I really should just keep over here. So you go into Lewis, go into your settings, your account settings, and then there's a key you can access, and basically you provide that key to Voicify so that Voicify can start to generate stuff for you. Right? So when we come over here, I don't need that. I can say create a new Lewis app because we haven't made one yet. But when we create it, or did something go wrong here? I might need to refresh. Or I might have grabbed the wrong key. So we see our existing ones that were there in Lewis. Okay, I'm just having some grief here creating a new app. Let me go back to Lewis and spin it up here. New app for conversation. That's the one I want. Call this FindMyRep. Yeah, I know how to do all this stuff. If I refresh here, I should be able to find it and link it, hopefully. And if not, then I might have just used the wrong key, which is probably the case. The Lewis APIs are currently being moved from using authoring keys to using like actual Active Directory auth and Azure resources, which has started to cause some weird behaviors with their APIs, but hopefully we can still get everything to pull through here. There we go, FindMyRep, and it's linked. So similar to what we just saw with doing it on Alexa and Google, this has to run through a deployment process where it's going to generate a new version. So so we just trained and published this v01. We'll see a new timestamp one there that Voicify will generate for us. And then we can go and add in those custom intents as well. So we'll let Voicify go add all its stuff. And then we can go in and add our like zip code ones, because basically we can add other intents and patterns to them. I can show you how we can do it here, but we'll have to do it again once it's done deploying. But essentially, if we create an all zip code intent, right, we're going to create one for each of our other ones, and then we go to add patterns for the all zip code intent. And if we say like we got to create a new entity, we'll call it zip code. And we can match it to any pattern for now, which I think is fine, but we can also make this a little bit smarter. But essentially, if we add zip code, then we can say that, or like reps at zip code as different patterns. So now, like if we go to test, we probably have to train first, right? If we, what do you mean? All right, if we go to test and we say like 02110. I hit none. Yeah, it's not letting me train it for some reason, even though we just did. But either way, we can go to intents here, and then we can add samples. So if I say 02110, and we align that, we can set this as zip code, which is interesting that it's not finding it. Oh, because the any types are only available for patterns. I don't remember how to do this stuff. How do I set this for my intent? Examples. Oh, it's in here. Okay. Now we can train. Now if we test and we say reps of 02110, we get the all zip code intent. If we go to inspect, we should see that it pulled out zip code, but it pulled it out as 02110, which is going to be a challenge. We probably need to use a pre-built type for this instead of saying pattern.any. So hopefully there's one for zip code, which we can check. We might need to just bomb this when we get to our other version, but let's also see if the other one's published yet. All right, cool. So now we have the FindMyRep v63727 blah 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 Naguid. Now if we go to intents, similar to what we saw with Alexa and Google, we see all of the Voicify stuff added. Some of these with utterances. Some of these will have the patterns on them too. So we have like the same stuff we have for the open-ended things, and it's already trained and published, which is great. So if we go hit the welcome message, we will get our response back and we can start to ask questions. But we do need to handle our custom intents because, like, for example, if I just say yes, like that's going to work because that's a pre-built one. And we hit the utilities confirm, which is then routing to our yes conversation item type in Voicify. But let's just switch away from Lewis for a second because we can always get to that later. I want to make sure we touch on enough stuff before the end of stream. So Azure Bot Service is really, really cool. They've taken a different approach to the sort of conversational AI management than like Alexa and Dialogflow have, and Bixby sort of as a tertiary. But essentially, the way that it works is that instead of like hitting a webhook that then sends a response back down, it instead like requires that your code posts a message back to the channel, which means that it can support stuff like group chats and things like that. Which is really cool. So that's stuff that like normally is a little more complicated to handle, like group conversations and when to respond and when not. Like if you were trying to create like a group conversation with the sort of like development pattern that Alexa or Dialogflow uses, you'd have a really hard time understanding like who's talking, what's happening in the group and all that. But because you're able to just send a message back to the group instead of a message back to the sender, you can have conversations with a bot in the group. That's like foundationally the way it's different. You don't just return a response, you actually post it back to the service itself, which is what the hosting is, which is why we have to pay for it and all that. So similar to Dialogflow, when we looked at the integrations here, like this list of channels we can support, Dialogflow has a certain set. There's a bunch that they're deprecating as well. Like a lot of these are going to be gone. But Azure Bot Service has quite a bit as well, including Alexa, which doesn't work super well from what I've tried, but creating a Facebook Messenger bot, a Skype bot, a GroupMe bot, Slack, Telegram, Twilio SMS bot, Kik, direct line speech, so if you want to just speak right to it, email bots, stuff like that. And then up top you can see like the sort of feature channels, which is we can create a Cortana skill for it, although those are slowly being deprecated, do direct line to web, and we can create a Microsoft Teams bot. The cool thing is the way that we've abstracted it in Voicify is that you can add any of these and we'll add first-party support for it. So, for example, we can already see the web chat, which we can test here, which when we hop in the group is going to function a little bit differently than it does from speaking to it. A chatbot is slightly different. So you'll notice, though, without having to touch anything, I didn't type anything, but because we joined the chat room with the bot, we got the welcome message, including our image, which is a little large in the web chat example, but we get the welcome to FindMyRep, you can find contact info, just say your zip code, and we have those suggestion chips too, which are also clickable, although we haven't set up those intents yet, so it might not work super well, but it's there, and we can start to actually test in this just like we would in the simulator. But you'll even notice there, like if we hit the fallback, we got our fallback message. And now when we add other channel support, like for example, we just go configure a Microsoft Teams bot. We want to do Microsoft Teams commercials, that's what we have. We're going to add it. And now we're set up to support it. There's other things that we need to do, but you can also create calling bots here that would work. There's a couple little bit of extra stuff you need to do to enable the calling feature, but that's fine. And then you can also publish it in Teams. So there's steps here to actually publish it and make it usable. Basically, we need to go into Teams and create an app package. And then we can also, like, once we have that app package and start testing it in a Teams channel, we then need to actually publish it to the marketplace, which is what we can do. I might have to take this part offline unless there's a way to get into, like, a Teams test environment. Basically, like, the only Teams that I have access to, it's all, like, private conversations. I don't want to even pull those up on stream. So I might need to get it tested, but then hopefully we can walk through at least the publishing process, because that's mostly like marketplace configuration stuff. And then once it's there, if you're a Microsoft Teams user, if your business is, you can add this bot and enable your employees or coworkers to now chat to it and ask all the same stuff that we've been doing on Alexa and Google and Dialogflow chat too, but now actually in Teams. So if we go back and look at the other channels, I'm going to cancel here, and we go take a look at Slack. The setup for Slack is very similar too, where basically we just need to set up two-way comms, and then we can generate it. So like, we need to go sign into Slack, get a client ID, secret, sign a key, and landing page if we want to, which we can just put to like the Twitch URL. And then we need to like basically send these URLs into Slack, and that's how the two communicate. Like, Bot Service is aware of your Slack communication to be able to send messages, and Slack is then aware of the endpoints it should be sending its information to hit Bot Framework or Bot Service. Now, the rest of the stuff that happens behind the scenes is already abstracted. Like, Voicify will handle that. So when we create the Slack bot, we'll be able to basically have all this stuff set up. It'll send information to Bot Service. Bot Service will then send information to Voicify. Voicify will send information to our civic information, like webhooks, send it back. Voicify then has that, sends it back to Bot Service, and Bot Service sends it back down to Slack. It's like, there's basically like 4 different servers, at least, never mind the ones that are like behind the scenes on Slack and Bot Service. But like, from our side, we got to talk to, from Slack to Bot Service to Voicify to our webhook, back down to Voicify, back down to Bot Service, back down to Slack. But I haven't actually built a Slack bot in a while, so let's go ahead and follow the step-by-steps and see if we can't get it working. One thing I can do is I might actually set up a Slack channel for this stream, so we can always use it to chat, and then we can add this bot to it. But for now, let's just take a look at the docs here, and then we can always continue this on Wednesday as well. Cool. Take one of the following approaches. Configure Slack in Azure, which is all we need. We don't need to use the adapter because everything is going to be handled by Voicify. So a bot deployed in Azure, that's what we have, and a Slack app. So we need to set that up. So create a Slack application to communicate with your bot. In your browser, log into Slack. Let's go create a new one. Can I go make one? How do I make one? Try Slack for free. Don't send me emails, get out of here. Ugh. Alright, let me pull this offline. Where's my phone? Alright, hold on. I've got the code here. I just gotta sign in and validate my email. Okay. Now, we're gonna name this Suave Streams. What's your project or team? What's the project your team is working on? Stream. Or actually, we'll just say FindMyRep. Who do you email most about this? Skip. Okay, so now we can go into our channel. Did we lose the doc on this? Did it not like replaced it in its own tab? Okay. So let's follow this stuff to create an app. We've logged in, navigate to create a Slack app. I can't believe they don't have these opening in different windows. That's so dumb. Create an app. FindMyRep. For workspaces, we'll put it in Suave Stream and create an app. Okay. Enter an app name on the select development Slack team. If you're not allowed, create or join one. Click create app, create your client ID and secret. Okay. I'm going to take these offline over here, and I'm going to add them to the Azure connector. Alright, so we've got client ID, client secret. We got signing secret, and landing page URL is going to be Twitch. Okay. Select URI did not match. Uses URLs when configuring. Okay, I can pull this back over now. It's no longer secret. I think we lost this thing again now. This. Right, we get our client ID and secret. Oh, we need to set up the redirect URL. That's why it got messed up. Okay. Add a new redirect URL. OAuth and permissions, and then we need to basically take this. So over here, OAuth and permissions, add new, add. And we need the bot token scopes. Scroll down to scopes. Okay. I'm gonna side by side these. Scopes. Add an OAuth scope. That one. Channels. History. Channels. Read. Chat write. What's the other one? App mentions one I think we got. Groups. Read. Groups history. IM history and MPIM history. So IM history, MPIM history. Token scopes. Okay. Yep. Left pane, select app home. Oh wait, yeah, I want to save these. Why aren't these saved? Oh, save URLs. App home. Right panel, scroll down and enable always show my bot as online. Bot token, show tabs. Always show my bot as online. Edit name. FindMyRep. FindMyRep. Fine. Subscribe to bot events. Follow these steps to subscribe to 6 particular bot events. By subscribing to bot events, your app will be notified of user activities. Select event subscriptions. Enable events on. Request URL. Braces. FindMyRep. No. Rep. In subscribe to bot events. Add bot user event. Okay, we need member join channel, member left channel. Member joined, member left, message, groups, message IM, message MPIM, and message channels. Click save changes. Boom. Optional. You can skip that for now. Gather credentials. Submit credentials. Yeah, we just did that. We need to like align it here. Cancel. I think we need to like redo this. Yeah, we do. Okay. I will once again take these two. do this. I gotta re-grab the credentials and put them in over here. Alright, back to info, client ID, boom, client secret, signing secret, save. That time it worked. Allow. Boom, channel validated. Alright. Now, let's see if we can't hit it. At least get like a welcome message or something, and then we'll finish spinning up the Lewis stuff. And then I'll see if I can get a Teams one set up online. That way we'll have everything available to hit, and then we'll get everything republished on Amazon and Google. So we've got like 25 minutes left here of stream. I'm gonna see if we can't get this to work with at least a welcome message, and then we can sign off. So I want to learn how to add it to your Slack app directory. Oh, I don't need to do that. What I want to do is go to the Suave stream, Slack, apps, FindMyRep. Alright. See if we say hello. Oh, look at that. The round trip's working. We got the full response back from Voicify and everything. So now we just need to get those intents set up in Lewis. So let's see if we can do that. Let's see. We're going to add a new entity. Is there already a list type? Machine learned. And structure. Call it zip code. Although, I feel like there's probably a pre-built entity. Let's see. We have postal code or anything. I wonder if we could just use the geography one. Right? Alright, let's go to intents. We'll add a new intent called all reps, all zip code intent. And then in here, let's add a phrase, 02110. And let's align this with location. Wait. Get out of here. Where's that? Didn't we literally just add one in here? Geography v2. Pre-built domain. Places. Postal code. Nope. Alright. I'm wondering why that didn't show up. Like, let's just say reps of 02110 as an example. I don't want this to be treated as a number though. Oh, pre-built entity. That's where I want the geography. What? Where'd it go? Where are you? Lewis. I don't know why it's not showing up. That's fine. I mean, whatever. We can leave it like that. Patterns. See if we can select it here. Oh, just do geography v2. Reps of geography v2. Cool. Still not letting me train. I'm going to delete these. Republish. Yeah. Why can't I train it? Let me train. Fine. We'll just, I wonder if it just needs patterns on each of these one or samples. Forget it. Alright, which ones still have a 0? Dynamic. Blah. General question. Who is my rep? That's fine. What else we got? Latest message. What's the latest? There we go. Just needed those. Alright, now let's just see if we can get the phrases working here. So if I say reps of 02110. Alright, we're getting the number entity. But I want this to be a zip code entity, not number. So maybe what I need to do, where was that like sub one? Like we saw that before. Right, like add pre-built. Like how can I just give it a different name? Alias for an entity based on context with an utterance. Zip code. Alright, so if we're going to use number for that, and that's fine if we want to use number. That's number. But can I grab... Why doesn't it show up? Like all these other ones are here. View an entity pane. Zip code. Boom. Now if I train, alright, still hitting number. I want to map this. Patterns, close all this stuff for all zip code. Train. I mean, like worst case, if it's a different slot that's being sent out, we can always just like handle that in our code if for whatever reason like Lewis isn't cool with that. But how do I actually like assign? Entities. Number. A role is a named alias for an entity based on context within the utterance. A role can be used in both example utterances and patterns. liar. Right, so they're saying if I say zip code, can I say number as zip code? Let's see. Lewis, use alias for pre-built entity. Aren't supported by pre-built entities. No. Man. Alright. So we can probably handle it a little differently in our code than if we need to. Basically, like in our Voicify controller, or this get zip code, like if we don't have these, we could also check for number, or really only this one. Like if we say if request dot original request dot slots dot contains key number equals true, then return request dot original dot slots at number. But for the session attributes, we're fine because we're the ones storing that. So let's see if we can get that to work. And then we can, if that does work, then we'll just go and add it to the other intents for patterns as well. Okay, publish succeeded. Where's Lewis? All right, up to date. We're going to publish this, that way it's actually hit. Now, in Slack, we can probably just say 02110. Oh, easy. Look at that. Here are all your reps for 02110. It's all the right stuff. 90060. There's all your stuff in LA. Awesome. Oh, that worked so well. We just had to add the number support. So let's go and add the other intents here too for our custom ones. We have gov zip code intent. We have mayor zip code intent. And we have senator zip code intent. That was great. We didn't even have to touch anything in Voicify. It just kind of worked. All right. We got to go to patterns. Let's do senator. Senator of number. Number senator. Let's do the other ones too. Mayor. Mayor of. I keep trying to type zip. Number. Number mayor. And governor. Governor of number. Number governor. Governor. And we got to go add phrases here. So for this, we can say like 02110 governor as a sample. We'll just go back to this one. 02110 mayor. It'll match the other patterns even if we don't have the phrases for them, which is cool. So we can save some time here. 02110 senator. Now we can train and republish it. And so now if we go back to that Slack bot, we should be able to just be able to say like one of these phrases like 02110 senator and make sure we get the right thing too. We're just waiting for it to finish training and then publish it because Azure Bot Service and Voicify talking to your Lewis app via your Azure Bot Service setup can only hit requests if it's in the production slot. So you have to not just train it, you have to train it then publish it. So now we can come over here and say 02110 mayor. Okay, so we need to figure out why we didn't get that response back. One thing that's also interesting though is that this handling here of the conversation design, because we did that in Voicify, we also can just handle like the yes and no statements here, right? So we had, you asked for a mayor, would you like to learn about a senator? Just saying yes just got me my senator. And that's because we have the last context of the 90060, because something went wrong with this one. But by saying yes, we literally still routed to the senator given the current context of 90060. And so we're able to pull up Diana Feinstein. Oh, Frank, thanks for the raid, my man. Hello, everyone that's coming in. So we can now actually hit the contextual response, and we didn't have to do anything else different to get that to work in the Slack bot than we did for our Alexa skill and our Google Action and everything. Hey, Alex, how's it going? And thanks to Peachy for the follow there. We're only like 12 followers away from being able to hit affiliate, so definitely send a follow. We're building cool stuff with conversational AI, and right now we're focused on enabling the ability to get civic information in more conversational ways. So for context here, for everyone that's joining from Frank's stream, essentially what we have is a voice and conversational AI app and bot and everything else called FindMyRep. And essentially what it is, it's an Alexa skill, a Google Action, a web-based chatbot, now a Slack bot, which is what we're talking about right now. It's also a Bixby capsule. Thanks for the follow, Frank and Nix and Shay Codes. Really appreciate it. So we're basically just trying to put this everywhere that we can conversationally, and essentially like what it is it's enabling people to just actually learn about their local government and who their elected officials are, all the way from the president and vice president of the U.S. to Senate, House of Reps, your governor, your mayor, your city officials, and everything. And we've abstracted it. It's all now built on Voicify, which is what we migrated it to. And we've deployed it to all of those different channels. So as an example, we now have our Slack bot where we're just working on adding some final touches to Lewis to add our custom intents to handle asking for like the mayor specifically. And then handling context around like if I say yes in response to something, what happens. So you'll even notice here from FindMyRep, we prompted the user, would you like to learn about your senator? And when I said yes, it was able to pull out of context that we're still asking about the same zip code, so let's go do the lookup for the senator. So everything here is built in .NET. It's all just an ASP.NET Core API that's running in Azure, and essentially it all comes down to running through it now a single controller where it was running through multiple before, where we have different endpoints here, so you can ask for all your reps where it'll just sort of drop a whole bunch of information on you, including their phone numbers and emails, but then you can get specifically like mayor, governor, and senator. So the way that works is we get the zip code out of the request regardless of where it came from, and Voicify handles that abstraction for us. And when we get the zip code, we then call to our response service, which then calls to the civic info provider. And this civic info provider is using Google's civic information API. So we pull up the Google civic info service, and then we basically make requests from there. So we go and get all of the officials by the address, right? So you can pass in a more specific address. In this case, we're just using the zip code that you send up to sort of make it as seamless as possible to ask and get an answer. Then we look you up and look up all the references using that, pull them all together, and then basically we just start to segment based off of the different levels. So if you want your local governor, that's administrative area 1, and then the title having governor, and we just filter that way. So all of that is now just like data access layer and then response servicing layer, and then the actual conversational side of it is built entirely in Voicify. So I can sort of walk you through that real quick, where basically we have our existing intents and stuff, so like being able to hit the senator zip code, mayor zip code, all zip code, or whatever, and then we route the responses through Voicify to our webhook call. Voicify also handles the deployments for us and linking and syncing and everything like that to the different places we want. But as an example, right, like when I open the app and say like in Alexa, open FindMyRep, and these are also available right now, public on Alexa and Google. But if I say open FindMyRep, I'm going to get this response, which I can manage. And then we route the conversation to say, like, just say your zip code. And when you say your zip code, you then go into the all zip code intent, which default actually has this you asked for all the government, but that's not useful. So instead we attached a webhook, and that's how we start to execute this code that then overrides the response as we go. So that's, the gist of everything that's happening that we worked on today. So sort of kicking off where we are, I want to sort of show everyone all the different places we can hit it. So for example, on Alexa in the simulator, I can come over here and say open FindMyRep. And when I do that, I'm going to get that welcome message that you just saw that we put in. Welcome to FindMyRep. You can find contact information and details about your representatives from federal to local. Just say your zip code. So for example here, and for context in the Alexa developer console in the simulator, I have to type out numbers. I can't just type the digits. It doesn't allow it. So if I say 02110, that's a Boston zip code, we're going to get all of the government representatives from the Senate down in this response. And so if I unmute this, you'll hear it actually being spoken out too.
202-224-2742. Elizabeth Warren by phone at 202-224-4543. 4. Governor of Massachusetts. You can contact Charles D. Baker by phone at 617-725.
Right, you get the idea. It's going to read it for quite a while. But the interesting thing here is, like, if I want to get specific and I say governor of 02110, we can start to provide a more conversational context. So we get just the basic response. Here's what I found. Charles D. Baker, you can call them at this, and you can also email them at this. And would you like to learn about your mayor? Where now all I have to say is yes. And basically we're keeping track of, like, the context of the zip code they're in from, like, the last time they asked. Where now if I switch over and say, like, okay, well, who's the governor of, let's say governor of 03062, which is a New Hampshire zip code. We'll get a different governor of Charles Sununu, but we still get that same prompt, would you like to learn about the mayor? And if it's available, which I'm not sure if it is, kind of like a smaller town in New Hampshire, we'll get that info back too. So, okay, we don't have any info on the mayor coming from Google, so we just ask about that. But if you'd like to learn about the senator, then again, you could just say yes and get their contact info. So we started doing this first on Alexa and Google and Bixby last week or on Wednesday, and now we're adding all these other conversational channels and making it a lot cleaner. So we don't have to change any other code now. The way that we deploy is from Voicify, going to settings. We deploy it to Alexa by just linking it. We deploy it to Google just by linking it with our account. And then for Azure Bot Service, we just register a unique app ID and password and a Lewis key, and then we link our Lewis app, which is what we have now. So now, anywhere that we can basically deploy conversational stuff, we can hit this. So any channel that Azure Bot Service handles, we can handle. So if we go back to channels here, we already set up a Teams bot, a Slack bot, and web chat. And we can also deploy to, like, Twilio SMS, Facebook Messenger, Skype, email, chatbots, and stuff like that too. And then similarly to Azure Bot Service, we can do it from Dialogflow, which is Google's provider, and what we're using for the NLU side for Google Assistant, but we can also do web demos and Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. So for example, if I go to this web chatbot and I say 02110, we'll probably get the old response. We get that massive response back with all of that same stuff, right? Same thing if I go to Azure Bot Service and go to Test in Web Chat, and this is where we basically left off is updating this stuff. So we just get the default welcome message. If I, again, just say 02110, we should get that massive response back with everything. The cool thing is about Azure Bot Service that's even better is that, one, we get images and stuff back, which is great. But we also get better sort of visuals. So we were adding, like, line breaks and lines and list items and stuff like that in our webhook, and they actually render really well. And phone numbers, or I should say phone numbers, we can always just, like, sort of hit and call, but, like, emails actually open up a default mail to as well. So, like, right now, if I want to email my governor, which is great. So now we have this set up in Azure Bot Service. We have it deployed to a Slack bot. which we just spun up a new Suave stream Slack, and now we're just trying to basically work out some of the kinks of some of our new intents. So being able to say like 02110 mayor, we basically just want to figure out why we weren't able to actually get the response. We got this "you asked for a mayor" response, which if we go look at the mayor zip code intent, that's this. It shouldn't be sending this back. We should instead be hitting the get mayor for zip code, which should return the mayor's information. So I think we're probably just not doing something right on our webhook with either pulling out the right slot or something like that, and that's what we're just working through now. So yeah, well, welcome everyone, and that's catching you up from the last few days of streaming and all this stuff. As I go through, one of the important things I want to make sure you all are aware of is that, like, throw questions out there. Like, I want to be able to make sure everyone on this stream is totally aware of what we're doing, and at the end of it, comfortable enough to even do some of this themselves too. So as you see things, throw questions, throw ideas. I also want to find ways to make this even better of an experience for people and find other channels to deploy it to as well. So we're working on Slack and Teams right now because I talked to some folks offline who said they'd really like to enable this for their coworkers and employees of their company, and they either use Slack or Teams, so they want to be able to just throw it up there to help empower their employees and coworkers to also get in touch with their local government all the way up to federal. So if you have ideas as we're going through it, throw that stuff in chat. The more we all sort of talk through it and the more we ideate, the better this thing's going to be. And then, use it and actually contact your government and be involved. So anyway, back to Slack and why we're not getting this thing to work. So over in Lewis, we can always go and test. So we said 02110 mayor, and that didn't give us the right response. So we have our mayor zip code intent, and we have our number. Let's see if it was just a fluke because deployments were going out, and see if we can hit it now. So if I say 02110 mayor, so we're not getting our response back properly. What we can do is go look at our request and make sure we actually got the right stuff sent up. We know we're hitting the right intent, mayor zip code intent. We know we're getting the entity for that. We know that using that entity works. And we know we're hitting the right conversation item in Voicify because we're getting this back down. So essentially, something along the lines of hitting this is not working properly. So one way we can debug this, because this is just running on a cloud API, is we can remove this and attach our sample webhook where we can actually look at what's being sent up. So let's make sure we still have that open somewhere. We got this webhook.site. And now if we go back to Slack, I'm going to side-by-side these. Pin that and this. All right, so we swapped what webhook is there. So now we can definitely expect this to be the response, but we're going to see what's actually sent up by monitoring webhook.site. So again, I'll say 02110 mayor. We got our request received. This one. This is like really not easy to read, so we do need to full screen it. Okay, we got mayor zip code intent. We got the would-be response. We got original request, and we got the number, but it did truncate the 0, which I do think we're handling though. We have the conversation turn history. All of this looks right. So let's make sure that we're actually handling that 0 case, but it should be fine because we got it to work when we asked for everything as well. Let's see if we can also get it to work with any of the other ones. So maybe not mayor, but if we say 2110 governor. Okay, so we're still hitting the right item, but we're not getting it back right. So need to look at Voicify controller. We're getting it, we're sending it in, so we're gonna have this zip code because original request.slots does have the number. All right, we got original request slots at number, so we're getting 2110 as a string, which is exactly what we want. So if we go into our handle mayor, for example, where we pass in the zip code, we have our info provider, and then we're getting it by zip code. I think we might just be missing this, basically, which we probably want to update in that call where we're getting the zip code. That way we can work under some assumptions here that this is clean. So here in our get zip code, instead of just returning, say string zip code is null, and we're going to return zip code. So now instead of returning these, we'll set zip code to it. There. Back in our response service, where did that just go? We want this here. We can do that null check as well, and then we'll basically prefix the 0. Kind of a sloppy hack, but it should help us work around the issue of getting like the truncated numbers. It's also really interesting to see like which platforms truncate that number or not. Like if you say 02110, Alexa sends you 02110 sometimes, and under circumstances it won't. And then Google always will if you say it or type it that way. They'll send you the exact text. But it's interesting to see that Lewis, under some circumstances, does not. And the reason why it did work for this one, when we just sent the whole thing and got the whole result, is because we were hitting that all response here in the response service. So we were doing this in this case, but we're not doing that in these ones. So doing it ahead of time will be nice, which means we can also probably get rid of this, but no harm, no foul there. So let's try this again. Say 02110 mayor. Oh, in that case, we still have the old webhook connected. So let's try 02110 governor. That way we can validate everything's working, and then we'll go reconnect some stuff up. That's not my governor. Interesting. Gavin Newsom is California governor, so we must still have something wrong with our context here. We should be checking... Oh, I think I know what's going on. All right, so we got two different things. One, we need to reconnect the other webhook to the mayor one. The other case is that this is technically getting prioritized. So we've got basically these three if statements, right? If we have the zip code in it, set the zip code here, because now we're not just returning, we're doing it ahead of time, so we need to basically like swap the order. So if we have the session attribute, set it to the session attribute one. So that's our contextual one. If we have the slot for zip code, use that, and otherwise if we have the number one, use that. I even want to like put it in this order. And then at the end of it, we'll do the validation. So let's publish that. While that's going up, over in Voicify, let's set that webhook back up. We should be able to get rid of this one and set get mayor for zip code. All right, let's try this one more time. 02110 mayor. There we go, Marty Walsh, Mayor of Boston. So now would you like to learn about your senator? And this is what I was saying, where all that contextual stuff around designing the conversation and the flow, we only had to do once, and the rest of this just works, including us sending the image back from the webhook. So because we got the image sent from our webhook, Voicify handles the abstraction to make sure it gets sent to bot service right, and the formatting for Slack. Bot service does some extra stuff to make sure the formatting's good for Slack too. And also, just like we saw in the web-based chatbot for Azure Bot Service, we also get the phone numbers here too. So I can literally just call up Ed Markey right now by clicking this and giving him a call. And that's one of my senators here in Massachusetts, the other one being Elizabeth Warren. But we can continue this sort of infinite loop. Would you like to learn about the governor? Yes. Here's Charlie Baker. Would you like to learn about the mayor? Yes. And go on and on and on. And then I can swap context now. So if I say that I want the governor of 03062, we get the governor of 03062 sent back, which is Chris Sununu. Would you like to learn about the mayor? Yes. We already know this isn't going to return a mayor, but we don't have any. Would you like a senator? Yes. And then we're just changing context, and we can keep this going conversationally. So now we've got an Alexa skill, Google Action, a Slack bot, two different web-based chatbots, because we can deploy it using Azure Bot Service or Dialogflow. Although, like I said, Azure Bot Service tends to have better features enabled for it, which is cool. But we can also now turn this into like a Telegram bot, a Twilio SMS bot, which would be pretty cool if we set up a Twilio account, but that's going to be pretty expensive, where you can text a phone number, a zip code, and get your response back. I feel like that would be really cool too. And we also have a Bixby capsule, which we can go and update now as well. So all of these are up there. The Alexa skill's up, and the Google Action is up and published, but we should go update them now that we have all the Voicify stuff. So what I'm going to do is go back to the Alexa developer console, and we can go remove some of these extra intents we don't need. All right, like we don't need this, this, this. We can also get rid of these event search ones. And then we're going to resubmit this. We already have all the listing information up there. We have our icons up there. So we should be good to go. So save this, build it. Now we do need to rerun validation because we do have a different language model. So once this is done building, we can rerun the validation, and while we do that, we can go make the final updates on Dialogflow, because we haven't really made updates to that yet to get our Google Action up to date as well. Alright, quick build successful. Everything should be fine, so we've been using it this whole time. Let's go update Dialogflow. So the one thing we need to do since we deployed is we got all the Voicify intents and everything else. And we can go remove some of the stuff we don't need as well, but Google's less strict about it. But we need to change out the fulfillment. So previously we were hitting our Google or Dialogflow endpoint directly. Instead, we need to go to our Voicify tab, go back to home and settings, and then we get, again, that list of links we've got. Hit this Dialogflow one. Put it there, scroll down and save, and then see how it works on Google Assistant again. So in the Google simulator, we can try it out, right? So we can say, talk to FindMyRep, and we should get the welcome message that we have in Voicify now rather than the static one we had. We have our icon showing up, which is good. We configured that once. And I can use these tappable chips. So if I say mayor of 02110, I should get my response coming back from my webhook. You asked for a mayor. All right, let's take a look at why we didn't get that. If we go to Dialogflow intents, we hit the right one, so we got mayor zip code intent, but we didn't get our response back. Why did this change to zip code? Is that always zip dash code? I might just need to change this in all of these other ones. Or, once again, we can update our code just to handle the different slot names. But I'd rather have it be consistent between all the platforms to have the same name. Other than Lewis, which is our our little special guy that didn't want to let us rename the base intent or the base entity type. Let's see, we got mayor, which is updated. I think the last one left is the senator one. All right, save it. We got to resync it to Google Assistant. But now, if we say 2110 mayor. All right, there we go. Now it's working. So now we can do the same thing, right? We can just say yes and loop all the way around it. We got the image to show up that's coming back from us just saying here, Voicify, here's a URL, and all that works, and we can just continue to ask about the governor, and then we can switch context and everything else. So we're good to go to get these updated. This build just succeeded on Amazon, so we can go back to distribution. I don't think we need to change anything. What's new? Made updates to the conversation structure to help you learn more. All the rest of the stuff is the same, although keywords we might want to add. That's fine. Save and continue. None of this stuff changed from our last deployment. It's public. It's only available in the US because that's the only place we support that data. Zeros are found. Okay, no, it's fine. Let's just submit it. All right, so we got a new version going up for review. That doesn't pull the other one out, so you can still just go and use FindMyRep right now from the Alexa skill stores. There is a live version and there's the in review, and we made sure that our API didn't affect any of the existing Alexa controller stuff, and same for the Bixby stuff. But the second this does go live and this one switches and is now replacing this one, we can just go bomb all this trash code that we had to write before, and we can just use our super clean single endpoints, cleaner controller, cleaner separations, and then we'll be able to do the same thing with Dialogflow too. Actually, Dialogflow we can even do earlier. So let's go update our Google one. You can go to deployments, create a release. Yes, we've tested. And that's it. It's submitted. We didn't have to change any of the listing stuff, and we should just be good to go. So I think that's a good spot to sort of stop on this room. We've got some stuff deployed. We can certainly get the Slack bot into the marketplace, and then I'm going to go get the Teams one built offline. Like I said, the only Teams I have access to are all like private information stuff, so I just don't want to mess with those environments. I need to go spin up a separate one. But once those are out, we'll have publicly facing, installable or enableable, an Alexa skill, a Google action, 2 different web-based chatbots, a Slack bot, a Teams bot, and a Bixby capsule, all enabling you to do the same thing and learn how to contact your government and let them hear you. So I think that'll be a good place to stop. If you have other channels you want to see this deployed to, we can certainly do that. Or if you have ideas for other features, definitely let me know in the chat, or even just DM me on Twitter. I know a few of you already have, and that's how we sort of got to the Slack and Team stuff. But then Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, we'll be back on stream, and I think we'll be working on the Warzone controller stuff. So for those of you who aren't aware, we've got 2 projects running right now. We've got the FindMyRep and our accessible Warzone controller with voice assistance, which is enabling us to execute commands and actually affect our character in Call of Duty, which is really cool. It's sort of a stepping stone to us building a fully voice-enabled keyboard in-game controller that I think will be really cool in the end for people who either have fine motor control issues or even just prefer to talk more directly at their machine. And that's also all .NET, except that we're going to be introducing our new little USB keyboard, which is an Arduino Leonardo, which has finally come in. So, you know, that's why we pivoted to this project, and also to help make a difference in the sort of current times in our country and help enable people to get in touch with their government. But we'll be able to handle some stuff with actual USB inputs. So we'll have an API that each of the virtual assistants and chatbots talk to. Those will send requests down over SignalR to a UWP app. That UWP app will talk over serial to our Arduino. Our Arduino will talk over USB keyboard commands back to our desktop, and hopefully that will actually work with moving around our characters in-game. So definitely, you know, join us 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, where we'll be hopefully hitting that sort of breaking point. And then I have some fun ideas for that as well, where, you know, I want to build a Twitch bot where we can execute those commands as well, where all of you guys in chat can actually go and start manipulating my character that's moving in-game on stream. I think that would be really funny, and then see how well we can do in a couple multiplayer maps, or matches of Warzone or regular Call of Duty multiplayer, while letting all of you control me instead of letting my hands control it. So yeah, 6:30 Eastern, right here on twitch.com or twitch.tv/SwavePirate. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you all then.